and his wife go out every chance they get to their church. like.
For our City Commission meeting of July 14, 2026. The time is 7:24 p.m. Okay, I think we were in the middle of audience comments. Please, City Clerk.
Amy Arbach. John Kurzman.
Please zoom all the way in on this. Good, John Kurzman, Honda Way. I'm very concerned about the ordinance that was passed at the last meeting. Elsewhere, it really seems that the stage is set for us to turn into Walton County, which has been a hotbed of lawsuits, and we're stepping right into all these lawsuits. The beach is getting a new character, and it's going to affect the city in general. I'm going to submit these slides because I don't have time to read them all. This is Walton Beach. Those are the kind of signs that you just enabled, these sandwich signs, where everybody every morning puts out signs that says, "Get lost." We used to only worry about ghost chairs. Now, here it is, 7 years they've been fighting signs like the signs that we're now allowing. Let's remember, the Preservation District in our Land Development Code says, all properties seaward of the Florida coastal construction line, you need to safeguard these areas from inappropriate development so they may benefit all residents of the city. Instead, what we got now is we're trying to help, some people are trying to help the sheriff to start trespassing people. And yet, the law says you don't need signs. You either by actual communication to the offender or by posting, fencing, or to stop, to trespass someone. And we've seen this before. In 2022, there was a program to do this, and the city stopped it. And even Walton Beach will not trespass people, the sheriff. Here is a sign, 2023. Not only did the code enforcement get to remove the temporary sign in the front, they removed the permanent sign in the back. So you didn't need a new ordinance. Here's another one where the city removed the cones and the temporary sign in 2023. Now, though, we've got hotels that are already saying guests must wear a wristband to access the beach, and it's $50. So they're trying to privatize the beach. Luce also had a sign up like this. The sign that was the problem is still in the water. So what did it accomplish? And this sign would already be illegal if it doesn't comply with the Florida Building Code for wind resistance. It has to have certain wording to be a warning sign, so it's not that. It needs to have a monument, and if it has a monument, then you need a DEP approval. So there's a long list of if, but you need to look into that. So we didn't accomplish the goal. The signs are in the water. This is this weekend. Now they've got the sign, and they've got a string of cones. And thankfully, Fort Freedom here, somebody built down there. And then at Undertow, next door, you got a guy who's just sitting there protecting nothing. He's protecting 6 chairs next door, trying to stop people from Undertow to go there. So this is the fighting in the sand. But what really messes us up is the change between versions of the readings and the goals, and it being about trespassing, and the process. And the sign approval is administrative rather than actually having the criteria that it needs that are listed here. And liability. If you keep a beach public, you have no liability unless you do something egregious. So by putting the no trespassing signs up, they're making it that then they do have the liability. So when someone says, I have to do this for liability, no, you don't have liability until you say the public is not welcome. And then look at our own customer use ordinance. We'll get to that. I'll send this to you. No, and I think your time's up. So
Yeah,
I'm going to give you a few more seconds.
The slide is just simply, if this happens and these things happen, everybody's going to be pushed to be in front of the Envoy Point, the Starlight, the Silver Sands, and Paso Grill, because that's where our erosion control line is. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Jim Marshall. Kelly Lee McFrederick. Deborah Scheckner.
Deborah Scheckner, Pocasega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. I have to say I was also rethinking that whole sign ordinance. I think we should not have it at all. Get rid of all the signs. If you want to put, I think they were going to put like a monument to show where the hotels had to be able to serve drinks to their people. It doesn't make any sense, and I have to agree with John. I did a lot of research too, but he did a better job. As far as the recreation, to use the YMCA as an example or to set the tone makes absolutely no sense. You have to be a member of YMCA, and it is not cheap. They do have outside, like soccer for little kids and things like that. You don't have to be a member for that. But YMCA makes absolutely no sense to use as a basis for us. I looked up in St. Pete. So to get into their pool up to the age of 13, it's $1. 13 and above, it's $2. We want kids to know how to swim. And people right now, with 100-degree temperatures, I would say we should have some free days to use the pool. That whole, I guess you would say, presentation did not make a whole lot of sense to me. And you guys had so many questions that paying somebody as a consultant, you shouldn't have any questions as far as the procedure, as far as the information. And again, YMCA, go look it up. It's not cheap at all. So when we get to Lido Park, which is my neighborhood, that park has not been touched in years. It's a very well-used park, and believe it or not, a lot of tourists use it as well because it's across the street from the beach and it gives the kids a little break. So I would like to see that moved up. I mean, if we have to wait that many years for something to happen, it's been a long, long time. We have also talked about a review board made up of residents for some of the construction and building going on around here. I'm talking commercial. McDonald's had a choice when they redid their building to go pretty beachside. They didn't. I'd like to see Publix and some of the other public buildings be attractive, be beachy, tropical, because this is what our residents want. Quality building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Garchow.
Hi, Kathy Garshaw, St. Pete Beach resident. I just, first of all, I know that there's a lot going on with our finance and budget cycle. Appreciate that it's a hard season for us to kind of process through a lot of information. I've only been involved in this for a couple of years, but I know that last year we also had the same dynamic where these workshops don't allow for any of the community to really engage when decisions are being made because they're workshops. And I thought maybe last year, and I have to roll the tape, if you will, but the idea was that before the commission decided on rates or millage rates in particular was the discussion last year, that we might be bringing that, postponing the actual decisions until there was opportunities for public comment and engagement. So just for consideration, again, I would love to see that happen. So on that note, I just wanted to at least present a couple of thoughts. I don't know how active the community is getting with respect to even looking at all the great rate study work that the city has done and provided to us. But I think it's pretty sobering, but it's also a great reality check, and the time is now. So I don't know if you can see this, but I think something important was the rates that you even looked at. They weren't on a monthly basis. Some of them are annual, some of them are bi-monthly, and some of them are monthly. So that's why for me, and you all know I do serve on, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the board position, but being on that finance and budget board, I've looked at the numbers, and it does translate into what I think is a digestible number of $22.42 a month. And that's if everybody got the exact same rate increase, inclusive of that wastewater. So remember, the wastewater number is bi-monthly. That wasn't a monthly number. So that's one thing. I think the other thing that I want to keep in mind is that even with these rate increases, we're only giving ourselves a 90-day reserve. We are also not tackling one of the biggest line items, which is all the purple bars that we see here, 132.8 million in so-called resiliency, but we all know that it's actually stormwater and drainage issues. So I do want to remind us of our own comprehensive plan. There's 196 pages, but if you dive into page 131, you will see that does specifically state that St. Pete Beach Master Drainage Plan shall require new development. So when we all talk about just covering the basics, that's why I want to encourage us to look at that millage rate, because this does require new investments and new developments, not just maintaining the current. So with that, this is the list of unfunded projects. A ton of them are parks, and they're all our parks. They're not just my park of Lazarillo, they're everybody's parks. So St. Pete Beach has a bunch of beautiful parks and a beautiful beach, and they're for every resident here. So let's keep that in mind. So we're all in it together. And this is the last thing I want to point out, because I'm probably going to be out of time. But please note, we are half the millage rate of St. Petersburg. So when you look at our fees relative to them, keep in mind they're paying 3 more mills than we are. So it's substantially different. We can't compare without looking at the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no more general comments.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we appreciate the comments and the feedback. I believe we're on to the consent agenda, save 2 items that we're going to pull out afterwards, which are item C and item H. And do I need to articulate what item C and H are, City Attorney?
I think we wanted a motion to approve the consent agenda other than C and H, and then we'll articulate those as they come up after.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda
Other than C
other than
and H.
items C and H.
I second.
Commissioner Causey,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Tate.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, I believe, and I personally asked to pull out item C, Resolution 2026-21, establishing a parking prohibition on 46th Avenue. I want to clarify, I just had a few questions, and I know we had talked about, as I read it, it mentioned between Gulf Way and Boca Ciega Drive, I believe. And I, unless Google Maps is lying to me, I don't think we have.
That should say Gulf Boulevard.
Gulf Boulevard, right? I needed to clarify that. So we really wanted to say Gulf Boulevard and Boca Ciega Drive, which is pretty much the entire length of 46th until you get onto Boca Ciega Isle. And I want to draw out, just to be clear, my understanding is we did a survey,
Yes.
and we asked the residents on there, do you really want to not have parking even for yourselves on that street? And I think, let me ask you this. Tell me the results of the survey. City Manager.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Poyer, who led this project. He can provide you the exact information.
So, good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. Adam Poyer, Assistant City Manager. So, correct. We were tasked by a previous commissioner to look into the parking situation on 46th Avenue. That topic came up 2 other times prior to that. One by the Parking Action Plan study. It was brought up several times during that, and then during a neighborhood meeting with Boca Ciega Isle. some safety concerns were brought up to staff. So we did take a survey out. I will backtrack a little bit. A survey did go out back in like 2018 for a similar issue. That survey came back that the residents on 46th Avenue weren't in favor of making any parking changes. So we basically used the exact same survey. The residents were asked four main questions. Option 1 was to allow permit-only parking on both sides. Option 2 was permit only parking on one side and no parking on the other side, and they were asked which side they preferred to have the permits on. Option 3 was no parking at any time on both sides of the road, and then option 4 was no change. So we gave them a first choice and a second choice. The first choice, 41 residents responded to that, and 18, which was the majority at 44%, said they wanted no parking at any time on both sides. The second choice resulted in 36 residents answering that question, and again, the majority at 53% chose no parking anytime on both sides. So that is the reasoning behind the resolution that you have in front of you tonight, is based on those results.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that we got a survey from the residents on that street, and this is what they want. And I think as a city commission, we try to listen when we're told. I'm befuddled a little bit by myself, but if that's what they want, I'm okay with moving forward. So with that, that was the end of my questions. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Do we have a motion to approve consent item 4C, please?
I move to approve Resolution 2026-21, establishing a parking prohibition on 46th Avenue.
And that would be to also change Gulf Way to Gulf Boulevard.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-21, establishing a parking prohibition on 46th Avenue and correcting Gulf Way to Gulf Boulevard.
I second.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Causey,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
and Mayor Tate.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, the next consent item is item H, acceptance of the substantial damage administration, I believe.
Acceptance of the substantial damage administrative procedures plan pursuant to Chapter 98, Building and Building Regulations, Article 5, Flood Hazard Mitigation Regulations, Section 98.122.4, substantial improvement and substantial damage determinations.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we have some newer commissioners, Luke Curtis, our building official here, is to present some background around this action and answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Luke Curtis, building official for the city. So today tonight we have a refresher of what we brought before Commission previously when we initially set up this substantial damage administrative procedures plan. And this is just a little backstory. This is something that the state mandated post Helene and Milton to ensure that every municipality had something established to be as prepared as we can post-event. So this was in response to that, and we created this. So what we'll do is we'll go through this, and this is just an overview of what would happen or how we prepare. So we have the overview and plan contents, updates, and next steps. So for pre-disaster planning, this phase ensures that staff members are informed and equipped to understand the applicable regulations and required actions in the event of a disaster. So this includes communicating essential requirements and expectations, establishing standard operating procedures and methodologies, and identifying staffing needs and resource allocation. So part of this was training, or is training. And so throughout the year, we continually have training sessions. So for example, we recently had a training session with Pinellas County to go over how the process works for the initial damage assessment, which is just a windshield review of the city to see how extensive damages are. That gets reported up to Pinellas County, the state, and to FEMA. Then we also had additional training sessions for doing the more refined substantial damage determinations to see exactly how much damage has occurred to each building, and that's a door-to-door process. And then, so post-disaster, immediate coordination. So in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, the focus will be on identifying the substantial damage hotspots and vulnerable areas, including low-lying or at-risk buildings, assessing specific staffing requirements and assessing personnel along with necessary resources, gathering required materials, and providing clear direction to staff for efficient response. Post-disaster, so damage assessment and determinations. So this is where we're conducting initial damage assessments, documenting those findings and submitting them to the relevant authorities, Pinellas County, FDEM, FEMA. Once that is complete, then once that initial assessment is complete, then we go directly into the substantial damage assessments using our new software, Forerunner. And that's where we'll plug in the data and come up with a percentage of estimated damages. And then at that point, we'll be notifying property owners regarding damage assessments and providing guidance on subsequent actions. So at this stage of the process, what our assessment will do is, number one, it's going to confirm the damages or create an estimate. So if we know a structure has been damaged, at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to establish how much damage has occurred to each and every structure, and then we'll generate a permit in our permitting software. And at that point, I like props, so I brought one. So this is an example of our permit placard. And on this, it's just a blank template that we'll use. We'll put the permit number, the address, and any other pertinent information. What this equals is we're generating a permit, and this is the go-ahead to do demolition. Now, post-storm, what happened with Helene and Milton, we weren't stopping people from doing the demo because we wanted them to get that wet material out of the house to minimize further damage from mold. It didn't negate the requirement for a permit, but we didn't want to stop them from doing this to further that damage. So what this does, this expedites that process. It gives them the permit. So use the example, we take a look at a house. Let's just say it had 6 inches of water inside the house. So the damage is minimal. What happens in that scenario is we'll establish the permit, we'll generate the permit, post this on the property, and it'll be a demo-only permit. Now, once the demolition has been done, things have been cleaned up, and the property owner is ready to go to the next step, they'll call for an inspection. So we'll have an inspector go out, evaluate what's going on, confirm, okay, no damage to the electrical, you can go ahead. Repair your drywall, your trim work, cabinets, whatever is needed. So this permit at that point evolves from a demolition permit into a hurricane repair permit. Same permit number, same access to it. If there's any supplemental documents that are needed, it will be uploaded to that initially generated permit. So just to give you a little insight into what our process is. Now, just like with any event, we'll probably learn from this too, just like we learned from the last one. And it's all subject to change. And those policies and procedures as far as how we handle things, it's ever going to be evolving. And that's part of the reason why we will annually come before you to let you know of the updates that might or might not be happening or changes that we have to make. So going on to the next point. So post-disaster, as far as reintegration and recovery, at this point, we'll manage appeals to related substantial damage assessments, accepting and processing permit application for repairs, reviews, and issuance. And these might be supplemental permits or, just like in before, damages aren't always visible. So for example, maybe the backside of the house got damages you can't see from the front, or it could be wind damage. It all depends on the event. So there'll be other applications that'll be coming in that we'll be processing. And at this point, we'll also be assisting owners in accessing recovery sources, including funding opportunities, documenting the processes and procedures for evaluating and identifying opportunities for future improvements. And again, we can learn something from every event. So there's two minor changes that were made to our SDAP this round. In House Bill 803, there was a provision that was made. We had an extreme shortage of licensed inspectors and plans examiners. I mean, it's a continuing issue throughout the state. What they did is they implemented an opportunity where a building official can take someone who has the qualifications, the skill set, and actually appoint them as an inspector or a plans examiner for a duration of 1 year. Previously, we had nobody that could act in that capacity. They had to go through the process just like everybody else to get licensing through the state. But this affords building official to appoint these people. Obviously, we'd quantify or qualify their experience to make sure that they have the know-how to do what's being done. But this was an update in 803. And then in the other revision was the process that I explained with the permit placards, as far as issuing permits at the point of determining damages. So the next steps. So we'll continue to monitor local, state, and federal regulations and incorporate any updates. So if we have any more House bills or Senate bills that pop up that impact this process or procedures, we'll continue to update those. And implementation, including continuously reviewing and modifying this plan. And then, again, annually, we'll bring this plan back to all of you for consideration. And at that, I'll take any questions if there are any.
Commissioner Robinson?
My big question is in regards to this placard. That I get the idea. I think it's great. We get a permit. It carries through the whole bit. My concern is this a realistic time frame? You know, as we experienced last time, it was pretty catastrophic for 80% of this city. It could be the same. It could be more. It could be less next time. But I question what is the time frame, the turnaround on that to get that on my door once I'm let onto the island?
So I'm going to backtrack to post-Helene again, because again, so going back to what we knew, what transpired before, which caused us to make some changes. So at that point, we didn't have staff. None of the city's municipalities had the staff to tackle this project. And then the county came forward and said, hey, listen, we've got an agreement with the state who's outsourcing this. And so we said, yep, absolutely, we need the help. We waited for quite some time before we saw any data. For this process, we will be, I'm going to back up just a second. We have the initial damage assessment, which is the windshield. Now, FEMA likes to see that between 24 to 48 hours after the all clear. When it's safe to go out, 24 to 48 hours, we're getting that rough assessment of the damages. Before, when these events happened, we got through that and we said, okay, what do we do now? We're waiting on the county. So we didn't do anything in relation to making those assessments because we were in that interlocal agreement with the county to get that taken care of. Not that it's going to happen. We're not going to get hit again. But should we have an event, what will happen is immediately after that initial assessment, we will immediately turn around and start going door to door. So is this a long process? Yeah, potentially, it could be every home that's impacted. Mm-hmm. So would it be a long process? Yes. But starting, so 24 to 48 hours for that initial assessment. After that 48 hours, these will start popping up. So the plan right now, we would have 7 teams that would be going out immediately, and that's just our staff. We have the interlocal agreements with, we have contracts with other third parties where we'll call them in to also help support that. So right out of the gate, these will start appearing right away. And then once we get additional help, that'll start going faster.
It could be a couple days. 2 to 3 days,
It'll-
4 days, 5 days, a week. My concern is that last time, we were at least able to, I mean, I'm reliving what happened. I mean, we were delayed getting on the island, and as soon as we got on the island, immediately what people did is started taking down their drywall. They're not gonna wanna wait 2 to 5 to 7 days for that placard to get on their door. I'm just saying, it's not realistic to what happened. I like the idea of a placard, that's great, and we've got that, but the idea that you can't take down your drywall until you have that placard, I don't think that is a good concept. I don't think it's gonna appease the masses here or anybody who is damaged from the storm.
So let me clarify. This isn't gonna, I'm not gonna stop people from demoing, just like we didn't before.
Okay, that's what this said. The,
I'm not sure what, well, regardless, the intention will be the exact same as before. I'm not gonna stop somebody from starting that demolition because I don't wanna further that damage. I'm going to encourage people to start. Pull out the wet material, the insulation, the drywall, whatever got wet, cabinets. Pull that out because we don't want to encourage mold growth. So this process here with this placard is not to hinder that. It is to help progress even faster the process and to eliminate people having to come here to apply for permits. This will be expediting that.
I
We're
understand that. What I'm
not
saying is,
hindering.
when I read this, it says, for properties where damage has been confirmed and assessed, a permit will be generated in iWorks, and a placard will be posted on the property, allowing the property owner or contractor to begin demolition of the storm damage provisions of the structure. So to me, that reads, you have to wait for that to begin your demo. And that's where I have concerns. Residents aren't gonna wait. When they get back on here, the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna start pulling out their belongings and assessing what they've got and pulling out drywall. And so are your hotels, and as we saw last time, they're the first in line to have the Serve Pro and all the trucks and everything, and they actually got on before the residents did. So we had a lot of that going on, and they're gonna be doing it, everybody's gonna be doing it, and a teams of seven teams, as to what happened last time, or if it's greater, or if it's less, it's not sufficient to get something out within that time frame. I'm just bringing it to the fact that I don't think, and I don't know, I can ask the rest of the commission if they think that's, realistic. If you're saying that that's not gonna stop it, then this document probably should say that.
So, and you bring up a good point. So we'll revise that so that the wording is a little clearer, because like I said, I've said it a couple times, I'm not gonna stop people from doing that demo, because that's a critical point right there. So we'll reword that so that it's clear, so that people understand. But yeah, and these placards will follow.
Okay, and I think the placard's a great idea. I mean, and I know that's one of the options via FEMA to do. South Pasadena did it with the yay, nay, a red and a green placard. They did it that way. And I just got to say, I have this mixed emotion on saying property owners are encouraged to contact the permitting division before initiating any work. That is not reality. That is PR. That's pure and simple PR, because nobody answered the phone. It was too busy, too many calls, couldn't contact. It wasn't going to happen. So I think that needs to be looked at a little better and be determined, because again, not reality as to what happened last time.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, and we can tweak the wording in that just so that it's clearer and less questions involved with it. But again, so this is, the SDAP isn't supposed to be a refined process and procedures for this. This is like the 30,000-foot view. We're working on the refined process and procedures, but we will clarify the verbiage in that so that it's clear.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to bring those up. I was very concerned with the demo permit and having to wait for that. Thank you.
Understandable.
Thank you.
Came up behind you. Thank you. Laura Canary, Community Development Director. Thank you. Yes, we'll kind of refine and work on the wording. And one other thing that we just wanted to mention is we're also working with the communications manager, because this is absolutely is not intended to be that community outreach and public outreach. So between that other communications and what we have on the website is where we can really reiterate what you can do before, and again, what the purpose of the placard is, as well as what you can anticipate getting with the placard, because again, depending on the type of event, if we by chance had a more of a wind event versus a flooding event, there may be some different details that are included with that placard to address that situation.
Thank you. I believe there might be some more questions, so one or both, you might want to hang out. Commissioner Causey, please.
Yeah, just a quick math thing. If we did have 7 teams and say contracts, maybe we had 10 teams, for example, and there's 7,000 parcels, it works out to be about 10 days to get those placards on. So is that what you would be figuring?
So keep in mind, it wouldn't be every parcel that we would be visiting. So exclude the commercial aspects of that, the condos.
I think that'd be about 6,400.
Yeah, so some of the smaller condos we might have to evaluate. But this initial substantial damage assessment is for 1 and 2 family homes. And then once that is complete, then we'd expand and continue. And that's in essence what we did with the other event too, is that initial assessment was for the single family and 2 family homes, and then expanded into commercial later on.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Robinson's comments. I'm just wondering, is there any legal reason not to change the wording to allow people to get to work right when they're back here?
So, no, there's nothing holding us back from that. But the one thing I want to be cautious about in rewording things is that the demolition does require a permit. We're just kind of kicking the can down the road to say, hey, yeah, you've got, in essence, an early start. You've got permission to start early on this, to proceed with that. And then you get your permit. Once you get your permit, then if there's additional paperwork needed, if the work extends into the electrical system or the HVAC, then that supplemental documentation can be added to that permit. But no, there's no reason why we can't outline that. But the crucial part is to clarify that a permit is required for the demolition. We're just postponing it so that people can get started.
I think if I can comment, one of the key takeaways for me as an end user was by having this placard, which we did not have before, so this is a very different approach. They've opened a portal of communication with the city instantly. So now you have a permit number assigned to your home. You can start uploading pictures. You can upload documents. You could potentially, plausibly, not even come into City Hall, which became a point of frustration for many people early on. So we're just trying to increase that touch point with the community where we struggled at first, trying to just deal with the sheer volume.
We're just wondering if there's a way to do it faster than having the people go house to house and it take 10 days to get that permission.
We would need more. They don't need permission. So I just want to be very clear. I think Luke said that we will change the wording because we will be communicating to everyone. Immediately start protecting your home and clean it up. And oh, by the way, you might see an orange placard on your home. We've already got a permit number for you. Start loading up pictures and documents and call us for a inspection, a post demo inspection, and we'll get you going. So that's the goal, is to get that pipeline moving much quicker.
Well, don't forget too, if the permit number is kind of a misnomer, because that permit number before was really our ISD number, or letter, or determination. And it wasn't necessarily a permit, it was something to be able to track your home more so than it was ever a permit. And that kind of got a little, and if that's going to be the case, let's not call it a permit, put it in there, but call, I don't know. It's something hopefully we have time to address, but maybe there's a different, an IQ instead of permits, there's something else you can call it something. But I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But there was a lot of confusion on that, because people saw the SISD permit number and they thought, I have a permit. No, you don't have a permit. You only have a letter.
Yeah, and that was an improvisation. We didn't have a
Well,
tool
it's
in
a tracking.
place.
It was something to
So,
track
yeah,
it, right.
We improvised to be able to track that because we had no other means to tracking it. That is not how things will work going forward. We'll have the documentation in Forerunner, and then we'll also have this permit. So this permit will be the actual, it'll evolve into the repair permit, but initially it'll just be a demo permit.
Okay. And then I did see in here and asked a question earlier in regards to mobile, under remote readiness, remote permitting and inspection workflows, door-to-door permitting support. Are we really, are we going to be
that's
geared for that this go around? Or hopefully never go around? We'll say that. So just be careful what we're saying here. Timely permitting process, responsive communications, and hopefully we learn to be clear and concise.
So, yeah, and just to reiterate, yeah, what that's referring to, the mobile permitting, is us creating that permit as we're going door to door. So we will be fully mobilized and out in the community, issuing those permits, creating those permits, so that people can be started, and to city manager's comments too, is they'll have a repository to put photos, to upload documents. That'll be established. May not be right away, because there will be a lead time for us to get out and do that throughout all the properties, but it will be there.
Thank you.
Laura Canary, Community Development Director. Just one more item. To the language that you were just speaking about in a timely manner, a lot of that came from the SB 180 language, because as you can imagine, there were some municipalities that maybe didn't even have their operations going for a very, very long time. And so in essence, that language is to say that, okay, if it's not feasible, if you don't have a building, a city hall to operate out of, then you need to make plans and accommodations to be able to at least start the permitting process somehow. So that's, I know it's kind of, it seems very convoluted as soon as, timely, but that's where it specifically came straight from SB 180.
A few comments. Thank you. I thank Commissioner Robinson's, feedback. I agree with that. I think, let's just be clear. I think we all learned from the storms of 2024 that we've got some opportunities to improve our processes, right? And that's kind of and I will tell you, myself and Commissioner Causey are sitting here probably in no small part because of, we needed opportunities to improve that. So I think I know I will have a laser focus on this and making sure that we improve our processes. I know everybody here, I imagine, on the commission wants the same. So, I too question, I like that you just said, go do your work, and then we'll hopefully open a permit for you. I would be looking at every opportunity that I could to expedite all of this, not just the initial permit on my door, whether maybe you just create a permit for me and it's available online on my mobile phone and I can just look without waiting for that orange placard to show up. I just kind of know that it's there because I've gotten it. But let's look at any opportunities to improve our software, our tools, and our processes and procedures to make sure that we are far, far more responsive as a city than we were. I think there's also, there's going to be a percentage, and I know I experienced, not personally, but I've heard, percentage we're going to drop that orange placard on their door, and then they're going to come back and say, I didn't have any damage at all. What are you doing this permit for? Close my permit. So be prepared for that kind of dialogue and whatever our response is. I just want us, we have the opportunity now, we've had it over the last few years, to really think about how we would do this better. And I know that there's efforts underway to look at our software, our processes, everything else. Think about all these. This is one of the most important things we can do, and I hope we never have to do it again. But if we do, being what we were will not be tolerated. So, thank you. I will say this. I know you were looking for a consent. I've heard enough that I'd like to see some changes to this documentation, and we said, well, we're going to go change that wording. I would rather not approve this personally right now, and then say, let's go get these adjustments made, and then come back and bring it to us next session, whatever after that. That's just my personal opinion.
Actually, this is just an acceptance. It's an administrative document, so I would ask that maybe you approve and you accept it with the changes stated on the record.
Okay, which is we'll acknowledge that users can get moving right away.
On
And,
demo.
Okay. All right. Know that I think we should be continually improving this, so we'll get more cracks at it is what I think I hear you saying, right? Okay.
We plan to bring it annually because of the changes in state law and as well as us reviewing. We get new software, things change.
Okay.
Those things sort of evolve.
Could there be something people put on their refrigerator or that is the final wording on this?
We could, that wouldn't be part of this plan, that would just be an operational decision. So if you all want us to create refrigerator magnets that say what to do, I can do it. That's not part of this plan. This plan is like a legal document that's really taken a lot of the wording from the Florida state law that said, this is what you must have in the city.
This is required by SB 180,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, I understand.
And that's fine, that to me is a sticking point on that, the whole demo permit thing. About, I think the permit's fine and doing the
Yeah, I
placard.
think we
the wording,
misstated
yes.
the intent, and I don't think the intent of the building official was to ever.
Yeah, I just, again, want to be clear because I don't want to go through that
Understood.
portion again, ever.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the item with the stated adjustments that we've discussed in this commission meeting? How should we say that, City Attorney, please?
I'll make a motion to accept the substantial damage administrative procedures plan with the clarifications as they
Proposed
were
by staff.
discussed tonight.
1 second.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Causey?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Mayor Tate?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. Next, we have ordinances.
Ordinance 2026-14, an ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, amending Appendix A of the city's Code of Ordinances relating to recreation fees, removing recreation fees from Appendix A, providing that recreation fees shall be established and amended by resolution of the City Commission, providing for codification, conflict severability, scrivener's error, construction, publication, and an effective date. I did want to note there's a misspelling in the header I sent to the clerk. That'll be corrected for second reading. We'll also have the attached Exhibit A, which are in your packet, the code changes to Section 58.5 and the changes to Appendix A. The basic idea here I can explain from legal perspective. Right now, our code requires these recreation fees to be adopted by ordinance, which requires 2 readings. This would change it to be recreation fees set by resolution, which can be done with 1 reading, making it much more nimble and streamlined and easier to change in the future, should we find the need to do that. So this ordinance, because it's still in the code, and an ordinance, this requires 2 readings. So this would be a motion to approve at first reading. It'll be back for second reading along with the recreation fees that were discussed earlier, with the amendments that were discussed earlier as a mayor resolution. So that can pass with 1 reading. So with the second reading of this ordinance, we can pass the new fees as a resolution concurrent with this ordinance change.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this action item?
I do have public comment.
We do, I'm sorry, we do. I apologize.
Deb Scheckner, do you still want to
Thank you.
comment?
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2026-14, removing recreation fees from Appendix A to resolution.
Second.
City Clerk?
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Causey?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
And Mayor Tate?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, on to action items, please. The first one is approval of settlement agreement and mutual release and limited dock space lease for Mary Pier.
So this is a proposed pre-litigation settlement agreement. Rather than filing eviction proceedings to work towards a mutual termination of lease and then a separate limited dock space lease for the existing 51-foot charter vessel. This arises from unpaid rent, but mitigated perhaps by force majeure, hurricane-related impacts, utility interruptions under the existing lease. This proposed settlement agreement would mutually agree to terminate the existing lease, require a settlement payment to the city, establish timeline for vacating the premises, and transitioning existing dock tenant information, reimbursement of fees that went back to the tenants by the main tenant, and a mutual release of all claims. So if this meets with the city commission approval, we would then present this and hopefully have a settlement that would obviate any need for eviction proceedings or other litigation.
Is there any other staff report? That's our staff. Any questions from the commission?
Get her done.
Like to make sure there's, do we have any public comment, City Clerk, on this?
There are no public comments on this item.
Entertain a motion, sir?
I'd like to make a motion to approve settlement agreement and mutual release and limited dock space for Mary Pier.
I second.
Commissioner Causey,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Tate.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. Next item, there's actually, I think they're somewhat interrelated. I don't know if, we talk about them separately very specifically and work through, or are they interrelated in
Well,
some sense? What's your guidance, sir?
They're interrelated, but I think that it'd be advisable in this case to consider the first one before the second and third, and to consider them separately. So the first one is Resolution 2026-22, authorizing a conditional use permit 26107 for an off-premise parking lot at 3815 and 3855 and 3859 and 3861 Gulf Boulevard for parcel numbers 07-32-16-18143-001-0010 and parcel number 07-32-16-18143-001-002 and parcel ID 07-32-16 07398-001-0170 and parcel number 07-32-16-07398-001-0230 pursuant to Land Development Code Section 42.4E and providing for corrections of scrivener's errors and an effective date.
City Attorney, I need to swear anyone in who will be testifying before the committee.
This will be a quasi-judicial item, so we'll do two things for quasi-judicial that are in addition to our normal legislative function, and that is to do ex parte disclosures. If you've received emails or talk with people, the commissioners would disclose that, or if they've done site visits. We go around the table, and then we'll swear in all witnesses who are going to give testimony with regard to this quasi-judicial application. So I know we've received a number of emails, and those are in the public records. But if we can begin with the ex parte. Maybe start with Commissioner Maldonado and work our way down.
Okay, so I've received communications via email. I've spoken to constituents regarding this, and I have conducted a site survey of the property.
I've done a site visit, constituent communications, and as well as spoken with the party seeking this conditional use permit in person.
So, okay, thank you. Yes, I live near the property. I've done a site review. I've driven by it, let me put it that way. I haven't actually stepped onto the property. And I have had a number of conversations in person and over the phone with various parties associated with this item.
I have reviewed a lot of emails. Unfortunately, I can't say I had an opportunity to review them all because a lot of them came yesterday, which is, I feel bad because I did not get to read them all. I know the property. I did review the Bayou Residential District in our code, and also conditional use permit applications in our LDC. I have not talked to the applicant, only have gotten the emails that I read.
I have read the emails that I believe we all received regarding this conditional use, and that's it.
And because it's quasi-judicial, the idea is with the ex parte disclosures that you will listen to the information that's presented here at the hearing with an open mind and make your determination based on all the evidence that is presented today at the hearing. With that, I'd ask the city clerk to swear in any witnesses, including members of the public or adjacent property owners or property owners' representatives that are going to give any testimony today. So if you could please rise.
And raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So sworn.
Staff report, sir, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Brandon Perry, planner with the City of St. Pete Beach. This is a conditional use permit number 26107 associated with Resolution 2026-22 for the property addresses of 3815, 3855, 3859, and 3861 Gulf Boulevard. This is a conditional use permit. It is associated with two resolutions that, if approved, these are the two subsequent items that were brought up earlier in this discussion that would revoke the existing authorizations that were granted to the property. They were separated, and I'll get into detail on that in a moment. But those resolutions went into effect in 2021 due to development tolling. They are still in effect for the subject property. John A. Boziak, architect, and Kevin R. Bowden, agent of Miramar Property Holdings, LLC, who is the agent and also the leasee for Beth Morian, manager of Sungold, LLC, that is the current property owner, request authorization for an off-premise parking lot pursuant to Land Development Code Section 42.4E. You can see here an aerial of the property. It's on the east side of Gulf Boulevard at the 3800 block. The property has Bayou residential zoning. This is a moderate intensity residential and mixed use district. It does allow for limited lodging eligibility with a conditional use permit. This property was the subject of a conditional use permit request last year for a lodging project that was not approved, but it is eligible based on city commission action. So looking at the site plan for the conditional use permit request before you tonight, this is a request for a two-phase parking lot. You can see the phase one in green on the screen. This is comprised of 113 parking spaces as well as a through access through the property. It would make use of the two existing access points to the property, one toward the northern side, one at the very southern side adjacent to the East Hand Cove Apartments. Phase two would be located in what is currently a very heavily vegetated Australian pine cluster in the southeast side of the site. That would follow at some point in the future potentially. That would be for an additional 87 parking spaces for a total of 200. They are requesting authorization for an off-premise valet parking lot. It would contain up to 200 parking spaces as shown over a two-phase project, and it would be for a period of up to 3 years. If approved in tandem with the two resolutions that follow it, approval would discontinue the existing parking lot authorizations that were granted to Tradewinds for approximately the northern three-quarters of the site and the Hotel Zamora in October of 2021. I did want to point out, in comparison to the former approved conceptual layout plan, this is a reduction of approximately 50 spaces based on staff observation of the lot. We've never seen the parking lot parked anywhere near 250 spaces. We've typically noticed about 60 to 70 spaces full at peak periods on this property, but the conceptual site plan for the previous conditional use permit had a slightly greater number of spaces than would be requested under this authorization across the two phases. There are numerous open code and use violations on this property. The property is subject of code enforcement cases for a dock and disrepair at its northern waterfront. You can see the photo there adjacent across the street from the Beach House Suites. There's also a seawall in disrepair at its central and southern waterfronts. There is an open code case for abandonment of the parking use on the northern parcels of the property. I will speak about that a bit more in the next presentation. Additionally, staff has found the existing parking lot operations are out of compliance with the authorizing conditional use permit criteria adopted with resolutions 2021-11 and 2021-22. We are recommending their revocation through the subsequent two resolutions that you will hear tonight. Staff finds the request presented under this conditional use permit, which would authorize the property with a conditional use permit for off-premise parking for up to 200 parking spaces in a valet operational arrangement. The applicants have offered reasonable assurances that the use can operate in compliance with the Land Development Code and avoid nuisance activity if conditions are followed. They've also committed to resolving all open code violations. These conditions that are assigned and recommended by staff are necessary to avoid impacts from surrounding land use incompatibility, inadequate buffering, and coastal degradation, which would produce inconsistencies with the comprehensive plan. Our future land use element includes policies that require buffering from adjacent uses, commercial use compatibility with the surrounding area, and protection of coastal resources. Staff has asked the applicant for some testimony, whether they have decided to install electronic gates, and if not, how self-closing gates would operate. We have recommended as a condition of approval that they have some kind of self-closing gate system at the north and the south access. Currently, the lot is operated with a chain, but it is frequently down. We have noticed beachgoer parking and other unauthorized forms of parking at that property. That has not been mitigated, at least as of our visit 2 weeks ago. Whether the applicant has any concerns with meeting the time frame specified in this resolution, I will say that the applicant does have their attorney present. They have spoken with staff shortly before this meeting. They are recommending some modifications, particularly to condition 9, which is the condition that assigns certain time frames for requirements for improvements on the lot prior to the initial day of operation, and they will get into that in a little bit more detail. I'll try to point it out as I go through the conditions that are recommended. And for item 3, for testimony, if they have a contract with a valet service has been completed at this time, and if so, whether they will operate from a service to off-site use or from the subject property during operation. The leasee of this property is also the owner of the Miramar property. I understand that they intend to use this at least at the onset for their development when it opens at the end of this year. And I understand that they are also seeking to offer valet services to other properties in the vicinity. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, this would be a valet-only lot with the potential exception of special events should the City Commission authorize them to pursue those during the life of the use. Should the applicant provide adequate testimony to support the request, staff recommends the following conditions to protect the health, safety, and welfare, mitigate potential future nuisance impacts to surrounding land uses. Looking at the operational conditions, this authorization would be granted solely to Miramar Property Holdings, LLC. Sale or reassignment, other than assignment of a different valet operator under this authorization, would result in immediate termination of this use. Typically, under a conditional use permit or under a variance and other action that's taken that generates a development order, the authorization runs with the land. In this case, based on the concerns we've had with the property over time, as well as the commitments that have been made by the current leasee, the current applicant, we would like this to run with the operator. They would be eligible to assign and reassign valet operators under their authorization, but ultimately any violation of these conditions by an operator under their status would be cited as a violation of this conditional use permit. Condition 2, the subject use is authorized for 3 years or until an application for new development is approved, whichever is the shorter time frame that had been originally proposed by the applicant when we met with them at Technical Review Committee. They have committed to a 3-year time frame. I did want to point out to this commission, and we are facing it with other properties, including the subject property as it relates to the 2021 authorizations, which were originally set to expire in 2024, October. They have been told by a state tolling statute. The state if a state of emergency is declared that affects our county, not only is the authorization told for the entire period of that state of emergency, the applicant also has the ability to request an additional 2 years once that state of emergency has ended. The state of emergencies from Hurricane Helene and Milton are currently in effect, so should that end, they would be able to request an additional 2 years. That is based on the current use authorizations of the property. That does not remove the city commission's ability to find the use in violation and rescind the conditional use permit, but should they be operating under compliance with all of the other conditions of this order, if there is a state of emergency declared within the next 3 years, I just want the commission to take that into account. You may be looking at a multi-year extension in this approval. That is not the applicant's intent, but it is something you could face down the line, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. Condition 3, other than is authorized under a special event permit, this use may be utilized by valet service only. It may not be held out or operated for any kind of commercial self-parking. There is currently self-parking taking place on the northern part of the lot. In speaking with the applicant, I understand the majority of that is contractors associated with the Miramar project, but I did want to point that out. This would be a restriction on any kind of self-parking, except under an authorized special event permit, should that be authorized to these applicants. Condition 4, off-premise bathroom service must be maintained for employees for the life of this use. We would not recommend any kind of portable toilets on the subject property. They would need to be maintained on another site that the applicant has authority to grant that approval for. Vehicles must be removed within 24 hours of a tropical storm or hurricane watch, not removed until after the watch has passed. Property may not be used for dead storage or storage of unregistered vehicles. Moving on to use limitations. Parking may not be used to fulfill off-premise parking requirements for new development. The Miramar is parked adequately based on the development approval that they were granted. This would be used as overflow parking for events, for additional uses of space on the property, but should a development be approved in the next 3 years while this use is operational, the parking on this property cannot be used to fulfill any of the parking requirements for this use. This is only surplus off-premise parking. Condition 8, the parking of vehicles larger than a standard passenger vehicle shall be limited to the spaces shown on the site plan. They're currently showing 2 spaces toward the rear of the lot. That would be for any kind of RV, trailer parking, anything oversized, larger than a standard passenger vehicle. Looking at development requirements, prior to operation, staff is recommending that the applicant would be required to provide a valet plan for receiving sites. The Land Development Code does require that any receiving site, any proposed destination site for this development, certainly for the Miramar, others that may be utilizing this site, we need to have a valet plan. We want to make sure that circulation on the site is still safe, that any kind of truck parking space or otherwise can still be maintained on those receiving properties. The applicant would be responsible for installing a self-closing gate at each entrance that would need to close after cars are moved on and off the lot. It would not be left open for any kind of non-valet service to access. They would be required to repair or replace the fence to provide a consistent finish across the entire frontage span and install a pedestrian access gate for valet staff. It would be required to provide for pedestrian scale lighting where overnight storage is provided. I understand from the applicant they are not proposing to offer any routine on-site overnight storage on this property, but if that becomes something they would like to offer in the future, they would need to provide for bollard lighting, other low-scale pedestrian lighting on that area of the site. They would need to install the wheel stops and crushed shell drive aisles that are currently shown in the site plan. That is one of the issues we note with the current site. It's fairly haphazardly laid out. We would like to make sure that it does at least aesthetically look like it is proposed on the plan. They will need to install signs and barriers at the dock prohibiting their use. That is currently a condition of the authorization for the 2021 approvals. They would need to maintain and potentially shore up those barriers. They would need to submit permits to repair the dilapidated seawall portions and remove or repair the dilapidated dock. That would be authorization from the city, and then moving forward on repairing those code violations. They would need to meet the fire access requirements, so they would need to make the main drive through the site a hard pan surface that could support a 70,000 pound fire vehicle. And they would need to install signage at the frontage to communicate that this is not a commercial lot. Within 120 days of authorization, they must provide the replacement buffer plantings and irrigation to all newly installed landscaping buffers on the property. We recognize that we are under a severe drought. This is a land development code requirement, but this would allow time for the applicant to extend irrigation lines to the property, find some low-intensity, low-impact landscaping to install within the buffers that meets the land development code. Within the lesser of 180 days of authorization or 90 days of building permit issuance, the applicant must replace or repair the seawall and repair or remove the dilapidated dock. This is one of the conditions the applicant is requesting a slight modification to allow for the dock pilings to remain if needed to retain their submerged land lease. I believe they're also proposing a modification to the seawall replacement time to account for the permitting process timeline for that request. Looking at condition 11, there is a very large, mature area of Australian pines at the back of the property. They've been there for a very long time. They can tend to have some soil destabilization effects when they're removed, especially en masse. So when they move on to the phase 2 area, should that ever occur under the life of this approval, we would just like them to demonstrate that that area is safe for parking prior to the removal of the pines or parking on that area. For condition 12, again, going back to the potential development tolling for this use, the applicant has expressed to us they do not plan to operate for longer than 3 years, but should they seek to extend the approval either through the city commission action or through any kind of state of emergency tolling, they would be responsible for installing a 10-foot frontage sidewalk. That is a requirement of the land development code. This would effectively make it a deferred installation. It would not be a variance. It would not be an exception. It would just be a deferred installation. There is some modest ability to temporarily postpone those installations based on the land development code, so we would recommend 3 years for its installation. And we would also ask for a barrier to be installed at the waterfront of the property to prevent light spillover and prevent use of the remaining docks that had been referenced as one of the initial installation requirements. This just gives some additional basis for that. Looking at conditions 14 and 15, these are dealing with penalties and revocation. For condition 14, violations occurring due to failure to provide the initial development requirements. So that would be the fence, the gates, the other improvements that are specified in condition 9. That would result in immediate revocation of the conditional use permit. So if the applicant chooses to operate the lot without having those operational conditions and development conditions in place, it would result in immediate revocation. We would return the case to the city commission. Other violations may not occur more than once over the lifetime of this authorization. And then condition 15 is boilerplate. We include it with any conditional use permit. The city commission may review this conditional use permit to assess compliance. As I stated before, there are companion resolutions, and this resolution was written to become effective only upon passage of the companion resolutions 2026-14 and 2026-16 that would revoke those 2021 authorizations. We do have what we feel is a basis to provide for revocation of those resolutions that would cause this resolution, should you approve this, as well as the subsequent this resolution would become the authorizing resolution for the entire span of property that was shown earlier in this presentation. So based on that, we have action options for you tonight. Motion to approve with the conditions, either the 15 conditions that were proposed by staff, or deny the case. You could propose additional conditions, remove or modify the conditions that had been recommended. You could also continue this to a date certain should you need additional information from staff, or if you would like us to consider other criteria that we would need additional time to look into. And that would be for conditional use permit 26107 through resolution 2026-22.
Brendan, let me just clarify for the record one thing. You had a slide that showed your recommended conditions. Those were a summary of the actual conditions that are attached to the resolution is Exhibit A, which you'll find in your packet.
That's correct. They are more in depth within the resolution as well as the end of the staff report. So we do have the two applicants present. We also have their attorney present. I'm happy to answer any initial staff questions. If not, the applicant is present to present their case.
Any questions for?
Can you show me where the two spaces are, the two large vehicle spaces? Well, I couldn't figure out which ones they were.
So if you're looking at the left side of Phase 2, you can see at the very left boundary of that, there are two larger, probably small RV or trailer size spaces on
They're
the.
just kind of wide?
They're wider, and I believe they're a little bit deeper.
They're two side-by-sides, right?
Correct,
That's what
yes.
that is? Okay.
That's all that, yes.
Because they're not very long.
No, and speaking with the applicant, they can get in more detail on this. I don't believe they're expecting larger vehicles. They just wanted them there to accommodate potentially an RV or trailer if it's pulled up to their site.
Okay. So an RV or trailer would not necessarily be a valet item? More of a special event?
Potentially associated with a special event. We had just asked them to show it on the site plan if that was something they may be proposing, and they had just shown the two spaces.
Do we have any restrictions on overnight parking?
They would be, there are no current restrictions other than the lighting requirements. There is a maximum length of stay that have been proposed by staff, which would be 7 days. But the city commission can, of course, modify that.
You said you reduced the parking requirements or spaces from, was it 15 or 50?
It had been 250. Now, that site plan was not necessarily drawn to scale. That's just a count of what was shown, but this does appear to be drawn to scale, and they are showing 200 across the phases, so a reduction of 50 spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Causer?
Brandon, could you tell me again when the parking hours that we're proposing are?
There are no specific limitations on hours of access for the lot for valet staff. The applicant may, from what I understand, they're not planning for routine overnight parking, but they would be able to better answer that. There are no conditions in the conditional use permit on that, though.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Brandon, my understanding is to be a manned valet lot. How many days is it manned? What times? Is any of that mandated yet, or is that just a question for the applicants?
They can speak to that. I don't believe they plan to have someone present. I believe they plan to have self-closing gates that the valet staff would have access to, but there would not be someone stationed at the lot to allow them in and out. But they can speak to that if they've changed their plan. I believe it would be some kind of electronic or other self-closing gate that only valet staff would be able to access.
Okay. Thank you.
For the special event, I don't read that as necessarily being valet. That's self-park, correct?
Correct. That would be a special event permit, as would be available to any property. We specify that specifically because that had been something that had been discussed with the applicant at technical review committee. Again, that's at the discretion of the city commission, but we included it because we wanted you to be aware that that had been a request that would be made. That would not be daily routine operation. That would be an uncommon off-premise event that may be more sensible to have self-parking of some kind, but that would potentially carry additional conditions that are not imposed on the routine use of the lot.
I just don't understand how that would reduce late-night activity.
Depending on the operating hours of the special event, which we would have to assess at that time, and again, it really comes down to whether the city commission would authorize any special event permits on the lot during the life of this use, but we would potentially control the hours through that special event permit.
The buffers
Yes.
to reduce glare from vehicles, why are those in Phase 2 and not in Phase 1?
So the side buffers as well as the rear buffer.
The rear buffer I'm concerned about because that is literally people's, because when you live on the water, you call your waterfront your front yard, not your backyard, and that's literally people's front yard where potentially headlights can shine into them.
So we would expect that as part of the initial installation prior to operation of Phase 1 that had been conditioned.
That's not under 9, which it probably should be, under like 9K.
That could be clarified. I'd intended to make that as part of Phase 1, so that needs to be moved under 9.
Yeah, because
see.
that's going to be that and noise, and it's going to be the death of the people behind them and to the side of them and potentially, yeah, to the front.
And across the street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially water, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's in condition 14. You might need to clarify too. It says the applicant may use an open barrier in Phase 1, such as a rope or post fence along those areas of the site where vegetation currently provides sufficient screening, provided that a solid barrier is installed in Phase 2 or in any other stage in which the vegetation is removed.
Yeah, I would look at that as being a 9K, putting it under 9. Needs to be done at
Brandon, can
prior.
you bring the slide up with those conditions we're talking about, please?
Another question here is, the Australian pines made it, huh? Because for those who were here a bazillion years ago, and they remember when Paso Grill was lined, it was beautifully lined, much like Captiva and Sanibel, with Australian pines down the side, and we had a storm that took them all out. I am shocked that, so that must have, just been more of the wave action than anything. But I just remember them all being turned over and lifting up the concrete. But they did make it. Did we put any stipulation in here for one-to-one replacement of trees for heat reduction and shade?
No, they would be meeting the buffer requirements along the frontage and the north and south property lines because they're considered Category 1 invasives. We do not require the one-for-one replacement of them, but they are at least meeting the buffer requirements for the perimeter.
The carrot wood that the city approved and planted in my yard is now invasive. So it's funny how that kind of works, but it's a shame because they're beautiful trees and they provide a lot of shade. They're very invasive to sewer systems and everything else, but they're very nice. Let's see. Silly question. Do we allow shell in residential?
We do for temporary off-premise parking lots only. It is allowed for temporary uses.
Okay, yeah, because I know a neighbor of mine tried to put shell down for a drive or something, and she was told she couldn't.
Only for temporary off-premise parking lots.
Okay.
And excess parking, yeah.
Because it's my understanding that shell can be an issue for runoff.
We are looking at the drive-through of the site. It will need to be sufficiently compact to support the fire vehicle, so it may be.
Which then stops the impervious nature a bit of it, or pervious nature of it. Okay. So we have no limitations on special events here, right? None. We don't have a by whom, how, the number of spaces, the times, hours, weeks, weekends. I mean, is it 29 days a month?
Typically, no. There's no specific limitation in the Code of Ordinances, but I believe our staff look at it as a non-frequent, non-recurring event. It would be based on potentially a holiday or a special event at a particular property, but you're correct. There's no specific limitation on special events in this, whether they're allowed at all. So.
Right, because there's nothing in this under Bayou Residential other than it says a conditional use permit for off-premise, but it doesn't say off-premise for a special event. It doesn't say overnight. It doesn't say anything like that. It just says off-premise parking.
Correct. Those would need to be limitations that were applied if.
And the current CUP has no special event listed, and it's contractually per 2 businesses, correct?
Correct. The northern lot was authorized to Trade Winds and the southern lot to Hotel Zamora. Yep.
So I believe there are, quite a few residents on those letters or emails that we received that were very big concerns on this whole special event scenario.
Brandon, did you say the special events would be permitted separately though, right, as special events?
Correct. They would need to go through the city's permitting process for that. There is a significant lead time on those. And again, we are just holding that out because we want it to be a consideration to the city commission. I know the applicant had discussed it with staff at technical review committee. So if there are certain restrictions you feel are appropriate to assign to any allocation of a special event permit while this use is in operation, that's certainly something we can consider.
We didn't add the condition for the additional depth to the south entrance. We recommended it.
That'd have
Because
been
that's going to leave somebody's rear end of their vehicle on the sidewalk, correct?
I believe it can, I believe they can fit one vehicle, but not two on that location.
I think it's less than 20 feet from the property
Correct. You're right.
line.
It's slightly,
to the
yes.
gate.
Mhm. And we would work with them. They do have some depth, and there are no spaces that immediately
Right
abut that. So if they went a few feet back into the site, I don't think that should be a problem.
So, I'm just going to read this. Staff does not expect significant noise issues stemming from the operation of the lot. And this is the kicker, if access limitations are adequately enforced. So if we're doing overnight or anything like that, it's going to have to then be with the sheriff's office because there's no code enforcement in the evenings.
There's no code enforcement at night, correct?
I'm just, don't think I follow the, that approves, that except for the valet portion cuts down on the likelihood of loud noise, late night operations, trash on the property, and other nuisance activity, but the special event does not. It's in direct conflict to that. Because that's self-parking, unregulated, and we don't have any limitations on it. No times, no anything on it, correct?
Well, with any special event, they would need to apply to the city for a special event permit. That's where they would lay out the hours of operation, how it's going to function. So there would be additional considerations, possibly even above conditions assigned tonight. It would not just be an applicant-led special event whenever they feel it's appropriate. It would be something issued by the city based on our review timeframes and so on. So there may be additional restrictions during a special event on no overnight parking. It could really come down to what they're requesting, if it's allowed at all.
That's all I have for now, except I will say 9K. I mean, that number 14 has to move to 9K for the barrier, to even make that even considerable.
Commissioner Causey, please.
Brandon, thanks a lot again. So I really agree with Commissioner Robinson's points. For example, the gate depth on the south side, that's got to be enough to be able to pull in there and wait for that gate to open, because it's not that way now. So it doesn't, I'm not sure what you've depicted there, if it is enough space. So please note that. I think overnight parking is not an issue as long as we're talking about valet only, and we're surrounded by sensitive residential areas right across the water on one side. You've got a tall condo across the street as well as to the south. You have 70 units there. So it's not ever was intended to be a parking area, but for valet parking, where somebody's parking one car at a time and going and getting another car, and it's the same person doing it all the time, for example, I don't see how it would be a problem. And I think the people who live by there have made it clear to me that if it were valet-only parking, that this might be okay with some conditions. But I don't think the special use thing is, I think it needs to be thrown out. It's just a complication. And the people have made it very clear that's unacceptable. It's not intended to be for special use. And besides that, if they wanted to use it for special use, I guess they could try to get that added later. But for now, it's pretty clear that the pushback this for valet only, if we're going to do this at all. And then a few other comments I've got here. If we were going to park a trailer in this area, that's a giant eyesore for the properties that are south and on the other side. So I would ask that we're going to have shielding for any kind of 2 trailer spots where people would be possibly parked in a trailer there for multiple days, since we're going to allow overnight parking, which makes sense to me if someone comes to your hotel and you wanted to valet park them. I'm not sure the hours of operation matter that much if it's valet only parking. It's been suggested 7 a.m. to midnight because of the light disturbance, but if there's light shielding, I don't understand how you would have light shielding for the condo to the south or on the other side of Gulf Boulevard, though. But that might be an area of compromise. I probably will have a couple of questions relative to which properties might have expressed interest in having the valet service that the applicant is requesting. I don't guess you've heard anything about that yourself, no? And I agree about the significant noise not being expected with a valet situation, but I think if you had self-park in any version in a spot this big, there would be significant noise. And I also don't think that the parking entrance exit is set up here at all. Because if you were trying to turn left out of that parking lot, it would back everything up. And depending on if it is a special event on a special day, now you would have people trying to get on the Gulf Boulevard in unintended location. And so I just don't see why we would consider special events right now. I think it would be against the wishes of all the neighbors in this case. That's all I've got.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Thank you. So I will say that a well-maintained valet lot would be a major improvement over what's there. I would say that if we were to add special events, that I would require 2 restrictions be added. One would be to have restroom requirements, and the second to have security on site. Thank you.
Commissioner Marriott.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandon, for all your work on this. In general, looking at this, I don't have any problems with what they have laid out here or with the conditions that staff has added. As Commissioner Maldonado says, I think this is a big improvement over what's there. I think a valet lot is pretty low impact on the neighbors. I would be curious, though, to hear a little bit more from the applicant about kind of what they envision this being used for, as far as is it just for the restaurant at their hotel, or are they planning on contracting with other businesses? I know that there's also a huge need for employee parking in that district in general, so perhaps they're planning on contracting with some other businesses for valet parking of employees at other businesses, which would be a huge benefit to the neighborhood. And I'd also be very curious to hear from the applicant what they're envisioning when they talk about special events, because what we're all thinking they're talking about and what they might be talking about could be 2 very different things.
Just one more, just a few more comments I'll echo. I think what we've heard most from residents, and it's been echoed by some of my fellow commissioners, is mitigating the light and the noise, I'd say in all directions. I don't care whether you're south, north, east, or west. You know, that's going to be a concern if we don't mitigate those items, and we need to be good stewards of our neighbors in that sense. I am interested in hearing about special events. You know, I'm I guess encouraged right now that there's no special event that will happen at all unless we sit here or at least administratively approve, or we sit and have the conversation, and we can put in lots of conditions on that. So, you know, there is no special event parking that's going to happen unless it comes through, you know, the city in this discussion. I will say that I would be interested in hearing kind of the operating plan for a valet coming back and forth across the street and how we kind of mitigate the impacts there, but that's probably a question for the applicant as well. But I think that's it for me, I think, unless there's other questions.
Well, I would like to springboard off of that comment and just thinking that we may be looking at, if we had an extension, maybe 5 or more years, there'd be multiple changes in the commission, and there may be different feelings about special events. But right now, it's pretty clear that we've heard from the constituents about their feelings on special events. So I still have a strong feeling about that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Really good research, and we appreciate all your effort on it.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brian Sykes. I'm an attorney with Meridian Partners Law, Clearwater, Florida. I'm here to talk tonight about the conditional use permit request. Here representing the Miramar Land Holdings entity, which is the developer and operator of the future Miramar Hotel. The Miramar Hotel is slated to open this December. I think everyone's kind of excited about it. It's going to be a nice addition to the community. And one of the reasons that this request is being made is there will be a restaurant and bar associated with the hotel, and we want to alleviate in advance any potential parking issues. And by having valet parking for those uses, that will eliminate people trying to find parking up and down Gulf Boulevard, walking to the restaurants, potentially taking Ubers, trying to catch a bus, whatever. But we also recognize that there's been a lot of issues with the past 2 conditional uses. One big difference is that this request would be operated, managed by one person, one entity, and that's my client's company. They have a vested interest in making sure that this parking lot or parking facility, for lack of a better term, is properly operated, is maintained, is clean, is safe. They're going to be using it for their valet. Now, the question had come up, will there be other potential valet uses there as well? Possibly. The Don Cesar reached out to my client last night. They had a conversation about it, and they would like to be able to valet cars there as well. Now, the difference is that's going to fall under us. That's going to fall under Miramar Property Holdings. We're going to be responsible for ensuring compliance with everything. We're going to be responsible for making sure that the valets run properly, and that we don't have the issues today that we heard from some of the residents earlier when we were speaking with them before the meeting, which is that the way it's being run today is they feel that people are handing out their parking passes on weekends. You know, if you're an employee of XYZ, we won't make any names here, who has a parking pass to park in this parking lot, well, on the weekend, if your friend wants to come over and go to the Undertow, sure, you can use my parking pass. Or maybe they're selling it. Who knows what's happening? The key to our plan is access control. Both entrances will have a self-closing gate that will control access to and from the property. It's not going to be a wave a little card in the air, oh, it's a red tag today, so they have approval to park here. It's going to be a controlled access either by a key card swipe, or a clicker, like you use in the gated communities. There'll be control over who gets in and out of this property. We recognize that's an issue today. There is no control. There are chains across the entrances. Those can be removed. It can be lifted. Cars can drive under. That's going to change. We're also not anticipating using just a control arm type of gate. Those can be bypassed. They can be hit. They can be damaged. Now, at this point in time, my client hasn't specifically ordered the gates for it yet. Right now, they're a contract lessee of this property, and their lease is contingent upon getting a conditional use approval for it. If we were to move forward, if council were to approve it, then starting the day after, we're going to be going into full design mode. And that's something we'll talk about in a minute. There's a couple of things we want to talk in terms of the conditions of approval. We're not trying to bypass any of them. We're looking at it from a practical perspective, saying, okay, you know, the 90 days after issuance of a permit of getting the seawall constructed. That may or may not be possible. My client works with one of the larger seawall contractors in the area. You know, we don't know what their schedule is going to be at that point in time. We don't know how long it's going to take to get the permits, but we've got some guardrails we'd like to put on it that I think will be acceptable to council and gives everybody an understanding of what is to be occurring. Want to thank Brandon for his thorough staff report. In his report, he went through and listed that, you know, the request is consistent with the comp plan, it's consistent with the zoning code. The conditions add and bolster to that. I'm not going to go through that, it's already on record. But what I would like to do is just kind of walk through how we're going to address some of these issues that exist today. You know, number one is controlled access, as I mentioned. Number two, the primary use would be valet parking. It's not going to be a public parking lot. As Brandon noted in his staff report, we have to sign the property that says not public parking, not beach parking, you know, valet use only. Some of the conditions that we've agreed to, and we don't have any issues with the operational conditions or the development conditions. We have some, like I said, minor adjustments that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we have to come up with a valet parking plan. The valet parking plan will talk about how it's operated, where the vehicles are parked. One of the questions that was asked earlier was about light spillage of vehicles parking and facing the water. Jack will be talking about the design of the parking lot and what we've done to ameliorate those types of issues. You know, we'll have a management/valet agreement, which we have to register with the city. We're replacing the dead landscaping that's in the buffer currently, and surprisingly, we're putting in irrigation so it doesn't die again. So we're improving the property, we're making it look better, we're moving the fence line back to increase the buffer for the vegetation and landscaping. We're replacing the broken fence panels, we're getting everything painted, make sure everything looks consistent and nice. We've agreed to replacing or repairing the seawall. And then with respect to the docks, we had a brief discussion with Mr. Berry beforehand. What we'd like to do in a replacement of the docks or repair of the docks is we want to make sure we're not going to lose any rights under the submerged land lease for potential future docks there. And it's unknown at this point in time if we go in there and remove all the pilings and remove the dilapidated docks, does that hurt us in terms of future rights? So if and to the extent we had to maintain the pilings, we'd like to do that. If it's okay that we remove the dilapidated dock and it doesn't hurt our future rights, we'll do that. We'll clean up the property no matter what, and the seawall will be cleaned up no matter what. Last but not least, and this one is a difficult one to swallow a little bit, but it's also going to show you kind of my client's level of commitment, is it's a 2 strikes and you're out situation. You get one freebie, and that's a condition that's been imposed by staff. We feel we can live with that condition. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Jack. He can talk a little bit about the site design, the access, the stacking. I know there's some questions about stacking of vehicles, and you can go from there.
Good evening, Jack Boziak. You all know me pretty well, I think. I would say first thing that I wanted to mention was the orientation of the spaces. When we first looked at this site, there was a site plan that was theoretically posed for parking that had lights pointing across the waterway. And if you'll notice, first place, we turned all them sideways to face each other, not go across. But also, you'll notice that we left all the vegetation on the water with Phase 2, and we made Phase 2 the last thing, in hopes that if we develop the first phase of it, that this is not the long-term use of the property, naturally. The long-term use is that we're trying to come back with some kind of a program, Mr. Bowden and I, that really creates something that's viable and acceptable to the city. That's why there's a long-term lease contract that has substantial costs involved, because we're responsible for replacing the seawall, which is a huge undertaking, you know, in excess of $500,000, well in excess. It includes the landscaping, the fence, the 8-foot buffer in the front, the landscaping, and the trees that we will be putting in there. We're putting in like crepe myrtle type, decorative type trees that are called, that are identified in the code. The fence, the 8-foot buffer, the attorney mentioned that the buffer was increased. I don't think anybody said, but it's going to be an 8-foot buffer back to a new fence that comes down there. The landscaping, we will have bushes in between the trees, and it'll be basically almost a code, like a code compliant type landscaping plan, and it will be irrigated also. So I think it's an exceptional effort to try to make the site, a lot more viable than it is. We did on that site plan address, you'll notice that we did have a pull-off for up to 2 cars basically off the street with the electric gate. We measured 40 feet basically on the long side coming in from the curb. As you know, the site is really the last extensive site in the city, and the reason we left Phase 2 on the water was hopefully over this 3-year period of Mr. Bowden's lease, we'll come up with a program that's acceptable to the city or that we can all, feel good about. And, I think we can't just take this property and say that we didn't like what was proposed before and we're just going to, turn it down. I think that the long-term use is not to continue this as a temporary parking lot. I wanted to make sure you understood, though, that the northern spaces, the 3 users potentially were to be outlined as the Miramar, on special occasions under contract, the Don, and the Zamora for employee parking. So there's specific uses that would have to either be, if anything changed, would have to come back in for the city to accommodate. I think what you got to realize is that the other reason we made Phase 2 where it is was that in the event that in this process, we don't intend just to sit on the property and say, okay, it's a parking lot, we'll see you all in 3 years. The idea is that we buy some use and time that allows us to move forward with a new program, commercial, retail, whatever, residential, whatever the use is that we all determine and you all approve. So the plan is not one of, it's almost being spoken of as though we're doing a parking lot, that's it. You have to understand the value of the land and the costs involved. Mr. Bowden's undertaken the cost of the seawall all the way across, as I said, which is substantial. And the landscaping and everything else involved is a substantial investment in the property that's intended to really be a short-term process that allows us to properly come in and come up with a plan that is acceptable to the city. So I think that you have to understand the intent. This is an attempt. He's not tried to, and we're not just trying to throw away, $1 million or so just to kind of create a temporary parking lot and figure out down the road what we can do. We've had some unusual interest in the site, potentially possible from retail. We'd like to put something there that is reasonably acceptable to the city, is an exceptional asset to the city, and it creates both a use and a viability that we're all proud of. And I think that sometimes you just have to come in and rework your thought process and try and see what does work for everybody. Mr. Bowden has as you know, has the Miramar. He has the Beach Haven property up the road that we're working on right now. And the Cambria is the site that we were the architects on and helped to put together. I don't even know how that was, 6, 7 years ago, I guess. The Cambria is the rooftop hotel in Madeira Beach. And if you haven't been up to that rooftop, we did that hotel, and we don't hear much more about anything except the rooftop. Everybody says it's a great place to go. It's got a 360-degree view of the water. Great place to go if you haven't been there. As stated, the gates are going to be electrically controlled. they do show space to allow pull-off from the road. The timeframe on this process is, naturally, we intend to try and get going as quickly as we can. The seawall, I've already actually been working with Spieler on the seawall because I understand the property, and I planned on either way that seawall's got to be fixed. Also, the docks they're going to have to, that lease and the repair of the docks is going to have to be faced sooner than later. So that is something that, as the architect, not independent of Mr. Bowden's approach to the property, we are, per city request, proceeding with. But that's totally separate. The Phase 1 has 113 spaces in it. Hopefully, in the event that Phase 2 did come into effect, we'd have an additional 87 spaces. It's approximately 3 acres with 690 foot plus of seawall, so it's one of the most significant. It is the most probably significant waterfront piece of property left in St. Pete Beach, and I think it needs to get special consideration of how we reapproach it this time and how we go about it. Let me see. The control, as I said, Phase 1, the 3-acre site is an exceptional site, and we have an exceptional interest in the site, that I hope will all work out as we go. But this is such a short-term plan that I don't think we're going to be 3 years getting back here to you guys. I mean, this is an expensive piece of property to be sitting on for 3 years. So please consider that we're looking at a worst out that could be affected by economic times, as we're going through a little bit of rough right now. Could be affected by hurricanes. It could be affected by a lot of factors that we're trying to have enough time to look at the worst out situation with the 3-year timing that we have. Just to go a quick walkthrough through this, as I said, it's a total of 200 spaces. It's a limited use for 200 temporary use spaces. It has an 8-foot buffer in the front, with a 4-foot new fence behind it potentially. The landscaping, as I said, is shown on there as being exceptional, considering it's a parking lot. The crepe myrtles with planting in between, removal of the trees for Phase 1 to just allow what we need to remove in order to get access to the site. The site actually is presently extensively covered with lime rock. For those of you who don't remember all those junky buildings that used to be there, I guess 22, 23 years ago now, since Miss Morian had bought it, it did have, what was it, Lou's Bar and a liquor store and some apartments and some hotel units. It was just a junk piece of property. So when they cleared it, it sat there vacant all these years. Essentially, it was cleared because they thought they were going to go into it right away. 22 years later, it's still in its vacant state. The seawall permit, as I said, I have had to kind of get in process because I know the city has questioned the seawall condition, and the dock repair I've been looking into also because it does have to be initiated. The electric gate, Mr. Bowden and I have been discussing doing an electric gate, exactly the type and how we would do it. Yeah, sure. Let Kevin jump in.
Thank you, guys. Hi, everybody. My name's Kevin Bowden, and thank you for hearing our request. I know you had some questions I just wanted to answer quick. The special event piece is more at the request of the Don parks its employees there on special event days like Easter, probably almost every Friday and Saturday. In February, March, and April, they probably consider it a special event. So whether you grant that right on a case-by-case basis when they request it is totally up to you. As far as the Miramar goes, our valet will operate 24/7. I think guests get up There'll be some activity, maybe as early as 6 a.m. By midnight or so, the activity is going to drop off, but we will have valet staff there 24/7. There is a flashing light just south of the north gate. We're going to put a pedestrian gate in it so that, and require the valet people to push that light every time they cross the street. The Miramar Resort will not allow any guest parking without valet there, ever. Electric gate north and south. The seawall needs to be replaced before we put a buffer on the rear of the property, I think. They're going to be in there with concrete trucks and all that. So I think we need a little bit of time on that. And most importantly for me, I didn't feel comfortable reaching out to the Don or hiring people to do things or buying gates until you approved it tonight, because that's when my real lease kicks in. Currently, Beth was really kind to allow our contractors to park there. Currently, Beth has been allowing Don to park there, Zamora to park there. Now, I know none of those things are approved, but the existing CUP is the problem, and that's kind of why I'm here. So we would like, if you would grant it to us, probably 4 months to get all this done, to get the gates in. By the time 4 months is here, my staff will be hired, and I'll be able to valet 24/7. For the next 90 days or so, my contractors finishing up the hotel will still be parking there. But we'll take control of that. I haven't had control of it over the last month or two. So a whole lot of people have the combination to the lock that holds the chain up, people that I don't know. So immediately, if you grant us the approval, we'll take possession of those locks, take possession of those chains, and people won't be leaving the chains down and going in and out of there. I think Don will ask for some help on some of their busy days. The general manager, I didn't feel comfortable until my contract was firm. After you approved us, if you so decide to do so, I didn't feel comfortable reaching out to the Don, to the Zamora, because I don't really have control of it. The GM of the Don happened to call me last night, and she heard this was happening. And she's very nice. She was like, the parking really will help us. We'd really have a challenge in finding a way to replace it. I talked about the fact that the event parking might be an issue because the staff brought all that up. The Don said if we need to, we'll valet, completely valet. That's what her answer was. So an agreement would take place between me and the Don, me and Zamora. It'll be my job to make sure that they follow through with every condition that you set. I think the city will be in a lot better place because I'm there. My GM is here. We'll have a valet manager. We didn't do a plan yet because I'm not sure if you're going to approve us. So that 4-month period, I am looking for that time period to bring in a valet plan to the city, to get the gates permitted and built, and to do all of the work that I'm required to do in phase 1. And, we've done business in town for a while. I hope you guys feel that I will follow through and make sure everything that we're talking about here happens. And, that's really all I wanted to say. And I'm happy and pleased to answer any questions you have.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowden?
Actually, if I may, just because Brandon had requested as part of his presentation and also in the staff report that we put some testimony on record regarding a couple of questions. And specifically said staff requests additional verbal testimony or written response to the following items from the applicant. Number one, whether the applicant has decided to install electronic gate, and if so, how, if not, how a self-closing gate will operate. I think you've heard from my client, Mr. Bowden, that yes, we will be installing some form of electronic gate. We don't know specifically, is it going to be a swing gate? Is it going to be a sliding gate? But yes, there will be some form of electronic gate there. And it will be a self-closing gate so that we can prevent, traffic coming through. Second question was whether the applicant has any concerns with meeting the timeline specified in the resolution. We do have some concerns, and I've kind of prepared a red line, which I'll hand to the clerk for distribution to everybody. As I said, there's really not concerns with the conditions and the development conditions and the use conditions. But looking at it, the way condition number 9 read in the ordinance before you, it says, prior to the first day of operation of the subject use, the applicant shall provide the following. What we're requesting is that it says within 120 days after the date of this ordinance, the applicant shall provide the following. The 120 days is a period that we feel we're going to need to get the permits for the gates, to install the gates, to order the gates, to prepare the valet plan. And if you look through the various conditions and the things that we had to do, it's tying us to within 120 days we'll submit the valet plan. Within 120 days we'll install, subject to receiving approvals from the building, receiving approval of a building permit, therefore, the self-closing gate at the vehicular access points. Within 120 days, we'll relocate the existing fence to the interior of the property adjacent to the front buffer and repair or replace the fence to provide and maintain consistency. Within 120 days, we'll submit an application for the installation of pedestrian scale lighting along any areas of the site where overnight parking is required. Again, we're not sure if there's going to be overnight parking, so that one's kind of an open one. If we decide in the future we have to, then we're going to have to get that approved. Within 120 days, we'll install the wheel stops at each of the defined locations of the parking spaces. Within 120 days, we'll install crushed shell drive aisles as depicted on conceptual plan. We'll install signs along the seawall prohibiting access to and use of the seawall unless we obtain future permits for docks there. And if we obtain docks in the future, those docks are going to be restricted to use by guests or invitees of Miramar. They're not going to be public docks. Here's kind of the big one, which is number H. Within 120 days, we're going to submit for a complete building permit applications to replace the existing property seawalls. We don't have control over how quickly the city, state will approve our application for replacing the seawall. And then perhaps even more importantly, we don't have control over how quickly we can get it built. And that's kind of addressed in one of the other minor changes, or I shouldn't say minor changes, one of the other changes to the conditions that we're proposing in the ordinance. We'll install the hard pan aisle to meet the requirements of the city fire marshal, and we'll install sufficient signage at the access points to communicate that it's not a commercial parking lot. If you look at the second page, we had some proposed revisions to condition number 11. And what that was is promptly following the issuance of the building permit for the seawall, we'll commence and complete the seawall replacements. And to the extent that we can remove the existing docks that have been damaged without losing our rights under the land lease, we'll remove that as well. The way the condition previously read was within the lesser of 180 days after the date of resolution or 90 days following the issuance of the building permit. We don't know within 180 days if this is approved, if we'll have all the permits, and whether or not we can get the work completed in that period of time. And I don't think, and maybe Jack can correct me, I don't think that we could probably complete the seawall repair within 90 days after issuance of a building permit. We're going to be at the mercy of our contractor's schedule, material availability, weather, everything else. But what we're willing to commit to is we're going to move this forward. In 120 days, we're going to apply for these permits. When we get the permits, we're going to move forward on working. On the dock and the barrier, if we don't install new docks at the time of completion of the seawall, we definitely will do the barrier. If we install docks, though, if we get approval to reinstall new docks there for the use of the Miramar, we'll have to figure out how that buffer is going to work. Because obviously we can't just completely block off the docks from the rest of the property. We'll have to figure out a way to do it, and I think we can do that with staff, and that would be part of the permitting and approval process for the new docks. And then lastly, but not least, number 15, originally read, any violation of the requirement of condition 9 that occurs due to actions of the owner or applicant prior to the first authorized day of operation shall result in immediate termination. We just modified that slightly, stating that any violation of any requirement of condition 9 that occurs due to actions of the owner or applicant. We struck the before the first day of operation because we have the 120 days now built into that condition. And I added a caveat, I know I'm a lawyer, and are not related to causes of force majeure or governmental delays. So that's the only issues we had in terms of meeting the timeframes. The last question that Brandon had asked that we answer is if a contract for a valet services has been completed at the time, and if so, will it operate serviced off-site use or from the subject property during operation? There's not a current valet contract in place. As Kevin stated, we needed to get approval first before he goes down these next steps in signing contracts for services. More than likely, the valet service will be operated by the Miramar. It's not that large of a hotel, a property that we necessarily want to bring in a third-party operator for that valet service. So it'd be under a self-managed contract, which we'd be providing to the city. But more importantly, it will be operated from the Miramar Hotel. There will not be porta potties on the site. There won't be any restroom facilities on the site. The Miramar will be providing, not only shelter from rain for the employees who are running the valet service, but also restroom facilities, et cetera. So with that, we'll conclude and answer any questions.
Pretty much it covered everything that I had to do before we got into all the other aspects of it. But I think the only other thing that we need to potentially address is that we had already addressed with the staff the 70,000 pound compaction of the whatever the surface is, and it is predominantly crushed shell at this, or crushed lime rock at this point. It would have to come up to the 70,000 pound fire truck access. I think aside from all that, I would say I don't really see a lot more. Oh, I do know. You did have a question about the oversized spaces. We did locate a couple of the oversized spaces. They weren't specifically thought of for any, we just were told, put a few oversized spaces in, so we did that. Whether they had to be enlarged or made more intact in keeping with what staff decides we have to, we can make that adjustment and work them into that that location, or an agreeable location with staff or with the administration. That pretty much is everything. I can answer any other questions you may have. I think most of the legal questions have been handled, and I think Mr. Bowden has addressed his outlook on development of the site. And I think that we're looking to do this in a manner that comes to a mutually agreeable and exceptional project for the site, because it is the most considerable site left in the city of St. Pete Beach, and we like to make sure that it's something that is appropriate. So, and if you have any other questions regarding the site plan or the development plan of the site, I'd be glad to answer them.
Well, I'll put out a couple for you. Let's see. How about with the Don? I think that I would be agreeable to expressly allowing an agreement, if that's your definition of a special event, is allowing the Don to use the lot. But that would be by valet only. Once again, because I feel like this particular location is not suitable for self-parking, and it's too much congestion, especially on special days. So valet parking, I think we're make everybody happy if we stick with valet only. And Don could park, they have valet parkers already, and it doesn't seem like a problem to me. That could be written into the agreement if we had to do it. Another thing, I would, don't feel like this is intended to be a commercial parking lot at all. And so you have your commercial vehicles parked there now, and I know the neighbors are not happy about looking down and seeing that. So I guess I would ask that we have some type of shielding if there's going to be things like that in the parking lot, where we're not looking at that from the other side of the street. The 4 months seems very reasonable to me, but I'm wondering, why don't we just have a time limit on when you're going to submit the seawall application or the permit for that? You know, I understand it takes months to get these things done, like, for example, docks as well. So there's another thing I wanted you to address. Maybe we could, and maybe that's a city staff thing too, whether your time limit might involve when you're going to ask for the permitting for that. I get the overnight parking. That makes perfect sense. I don't think there's any question about that in my mind. Once again, the 4 months for the gates makes sense. But once again, I think that might be a permitting question. Like, we'd like to see you having plans put in that force, rather than just like an arbitrary time limit, possibly. I think that's it for me.
Commissioner Maldonado.
I think he had a follow-on statement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Just one quick follow-up. With respect to the Don Cesar use, I would prefer that's not written into the agreement, because this is a use that my client is requesting as a lessee of the property. We have the right to do sub-licensing under our lease, and that's kind of contemplated in the conditions here that, okay, we can allow for other valet uses, but we're the ones that's on the hook. So I would prefer not to have that written into it. I think it's sufficient the way the ordinance conditions read, that we could allow for other valet, but it's on us.
So we're talking about other organizations using their valet staff to park cars in the lot.
But they would have to come through us, and it would be managed by us.
Now, one of the concerns is by the people directly across the street, and the concept that the limited beach area on the beach on the other side of the street is constrained by the amount of parking that's available to these places. For example, at the Miramar, there's a certain number of spaces there. At the Undertow, there's a limited number of spaces there. And so one of the letters from constituent was, what about Undertow valet parking 100 cars there?
We had no thoughts or consideration of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and again, one of the things is we don't want to turn this into a tailgate party, you know, on weekends. We have no interest in this becoming a quasi-public beach parking or a paid beach parking. The intention is for it to be for the Miramar. If we come to an agreement with the Don Cesar, that would be a potential, and prospectively with Zamora if they want to come to it. As Kevin said, we just haven't approached these people yet because we didn't even know if we would have approval. But, I mean, would you have any issues restricting against bar, like the...
I think maybe that would be helpful if we were to think along the lines of overflow parking for hotels.
Why don't we, and I'm okay with this, why don't we say, other than the Don and the Zamora, we won't enter into any agreements with anybody else to valet there without the city's approval first.
Yeah.
The Don and
Let's say, let's not name, let's say other than hospitality.
Other than hospitality, yeah, our intention is not to allow beach bar parking.
Right, and it's just that one of the neighbors is specifically concerned about that establishment getting additional parking because of the very tight spaces there between the neighbors is naturally constrained. And this is the problem that we've had with the misuse of that parking lot up to this point, is it allows, I guess you could say, too many people to end up in the same spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's not our intention, and, you know, the two parties that are parking there right now, Zamora and Don, I was going to reach out to both and try to help them. They both have kind of issues with their tight site, particularly with the Don growing and having all the demand. But I think that we can commit to you that we will not allow valet parking for the undertow.
I would rather we don't discriminate against any particular place, rather take the advice of your attorney and keep it to hoteliers. You're already capped at 200, so to Commissioner Kazi's
Exaggeration.
concern
Yeah.
with specific
Yeah.
places. And the assurance is that it doesn't become a tailgating thing, I think will assure that some of the people that reached out to all of us, that concern is diminished.
Okay.
Not taken away, but diminished, right? I mean, it can always happen.
Sounds great.
That's it for me.
So I've got a couple. We'll start with Jack. So Jack, as the valets come in and traverse throughout the parking lot, you know, and now there's a tendency to have vehicles that are a lot higher, SUVs, pickups that are, you know, 4 or 5 feet off the ground, and things like that. You really need to ensure that you mitigate that, especially looking at the Bayou, to make sure that there's some kind of shield so that as they're coming through there, I understand they're going to be parked headlight to headlight, but as you're coming in there, you're going to cause disruption to some of the neighbors that have been reaching out to us, so that should be addressed.
You made the best attempt to do it, and we would naturally, but you have to realize there's, to fit a reasonable number of cars on there and come up with a reasonable, and once again, we're not looking, this is not a long-term solution. This is,
just talk about the headlights coming in and out during the hours of reduced visibility. It's going to be something to certainly get ahead of instead of afterwards. And then we're going to start getting calls through code enforcement and things and trying to help you succeed here.
Well, I think that's why we left that entire second phase. We put it where it is, was not, rather than to divide the property in half and operate one gate, which would have been more economical for us. We did it this way to try and leave that buffer that exists of the trees and, you know, perhaps do some additional shrubbery or something back there to try and block lights or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, believe me, we're trying to make this thing.
There won't be a perfect solution. It's just one of the things that's been expressed. So
you got people on all sides of you, actually, and
we do.
Depends on which ones you want to have complaining, I guess.
Thank you, Jack. So let's see here. So then, I guess to Mr. Bowden, sir, did you state that there's going to be a pedestrian crossing for the valets to use?
There is currently a flashing yellow light. It was just a little bit south of the north gate. I actually crossed it today.
And your instructions will be for them to use that, because one of the major concerns that we have is safety.
Absolutely.
The reduced lighting at night. I hate driving that road at night. There have been several fatalities, unfortunately.
So we will put a pedestrian opening in that gate.
Okay.
Right where the flashing light is.
Perfect.
And our valet and anyone else that valets at that lot will be instructed that they need.
And I want to underscore that. That'll be the instructions. It's a safety thing. We're concerned about it. Pedestrian accidents and fatalities.
I'm concerned about it as well.
A big thing. Thank you, sir. Okay, and then for Attorney Sykes, group participation, try to get one from everyone. So on your response to the city staff, under item 11, which is the third to last page, you use the word promptly.
Yes, on the commencement of construction.
Correct. So the promptly following issuance of the building permit specified in condition. I do think that there has to be a not to exceed period there at some point. I mean, you're the attorney, we have an attorney, but if we leave it open-ended without a calendar day, or limit, who's to say that 2 years from now, you're still waiting on this thing? So I would like that we would have a not to exceed somewhere in that sentence. And then if necessary, you can always come back to the city, explain extenuating circumstances, force majeure, or whatever it may be, within reason. But as an attorney, I think that you're probably thinking the same thing, you know, and there should be something there.
Understood.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you all.
There are no other questions, Lee, or if anybody has any other questions, I'd be glad to try and respond.
I might, do you have a question of Mr. Bozak?
I'm not really sure who they would go to. So.
Yeah, I might have one that I think might apply to you, so let me ask, sir, please.
Yeah, sure.
I echo kind of what Commissioner Maldonado just said. Listen, I think what I hear most from residents and the community is light, noise, and trash. And the valet kind of already gets rid of the trash and the issues there. Limited access gets rid of a lot of those issues right there. Noise, I think as long as we're not honking horns and having alarms going off all night long, you know, I think one car in, one car out kind of thing is fairly less noise than a big issue. Light. So now I'm worried about lights pulling in and pulling around, and I know you park them headlight to headlight as we alluded to, but I still got to come in that first spot, and I'm probably shining right across the water a very short distance into somebody's back door, right, or front door as we call it, right, and then I'm going in and out of these things. So I'll cut to the chase. Within 120 days of submitting it, of this approval, you'll submit a permit for a seawall. I'm just kind of paraphrasing a lot of what I saw. So 120 days, submit approval. City's got its own permit time. We'll undetermined to you, so you can't control that. I get it. Prompt repair of the seawall dock once you get the approval, right? And that's what was commented on. And then, you know, while you're repairing the seawall, then and only then, if the docks aren't repaired, now you're going to put up a barrier, right, on that backside. And I think for me, I'm just hearing 120 days approval, prompt repair, and of the seawall. I'm hearing, frankly, a pretty lengthy time frame, just to be frank with you. And so I'm worried about mitigating the light impacts. And so I'm wondering if we can't find a way to put maybe just a light barrier of sorts that for the 120 plus days while you're working on your seawall, you're doing all of this, we can't just make sure that we don't have light coming across, you know, to our neighbors. And I'm wondering if you can't help. I don't know if this is part of your design. That's why I asked you, Mr. Bozak, but whoever can answer that best is a concern for me, mitigating how long we have any light concerns going into our neighbors.
Whether it be with landscaping or a low fence or something, we can discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I mean, maybe we could put, you know, like with those silk fences with the wood in, right? Maybe we could put higher one at the height of lights. Because whatever we do there is going to be temporary as they come in to build the seawall. They're going to need to get trucks in there,
yes,
right? So we don't want to put a fence there. We don't want to put shrubs there because they're going to be in the way. But if we do like a temporary, almost like a silk fence, but it would hang from maybe this height to this height, so those lights would be knocked down until the seawall is replaced. And then I have no problem. I have no problem landscaping back there. We'll take care of those people back there. I wouldn't like it if it was my house and some of the lights were hitting my pool.
And I'm just suggesting that's very early in your process, right? That is a very early thing to mitigate the light. I don't think noise is going to be an issue with one valet coming in, or several valets coming and going. How quickly can we get that?
I can commit that within 30 days we'll get a silk fence up there across the back to knock down headlights, and that's what you'd like. If that would help solve that problem there. That's not a permit thing. That's just me buying some silk and have some.
It's not a big ask.
Hang it up, so.
Yeah, understood. Thank you. That's.
We'd certainly be happy to do that.
So I mean, to go in front of you, but.
And that's okay.
Thank you.
Unless I forget my question.
Okay, if there's nothing further from me, I thank you, and you know, I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
When did the Miramar discover that it didn't have adequate parking for its restaurant and bar?
Well, I would say we don't have adequate parking. I think, you know, our plan, if the hotel's full, we've got enough spaces for all of the rooms. The food and beverage outlet is open to the guests. You don't run 100% every day, but I think we knew that we were going to have to run a social media campaign and a marketing campaign that's kind of said, most nights our lot's going to be full. We would have valet guys out there anyways to suggest that they park up at the county lot, right? But the opportunity to buy this property and lease this property gives me the opportunity to probably grow my food and beverage business stronger than it would have grown without it. So.
How many spaces are you thinking?
What will Miramar need on the average day? I don't know how busy the restaurant will be. I hope the food's great and everybody comes.
So do we.
I would think, probably valet-wise, 30 is probably what we're going to use a day, not nowhere near 100-something. So our commitment money-wise is to, basically try to get something approved that we can build that will make the land value what we need to pay for it, and maybe get me some extra permanent parking over there when we build something, once I know what the needs are, right? And in the meantime, I know that the Don Cesar needs spaces, so why not help them?
What are they looking at? How many have they?
Well, I think they would tell you that every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is a special event at the Don Cesar in the busy season, and I think they need the parking lot outside there to valet cars too, and they're having their employees park in this lot. And, they've been doing that for...
What, do you think 50 spaces, 75?
I think someplace between 50 and 100 the Don's going to use. And I don't know if that changes if you say that they can only valet. I don't know how they make that work. But I told her if we're approved tonight, I would contact her right away and sit with her, because it's a concern of hers. She'll have to make other arrangements to park. So I think most on the beach beach parking is a shortage all the way up and down the beach, right?
Mm-hmm. That's because everybody wants to build density for hotel rooms instead of using some of it for parking. So, and hence a bit of a shortage.
Hence a bit of a shortage, and it's all about how beautiful the beach is and everybody that wants to be out there, right? So,
So you're talking Don Cesar proper as well as the suites? Are looking to...
I'm not sure, because I haven't even met with him. I know the GM of the Don Cesar called me last night. So other than that, that's the first time I've ever talked to her. I didn't feel comfortable.
In Zamora, how many spots are they using typically?
I think they're using, from what I've seen over the last months, they're using 10, 15 spaces at that south end. So I think the 140 spaces or whatever we have in phase one is probably enough to satisfy everybody, if you approve it. Phase two involves taking down a lot of trees. It's going to open up light for a lot of other homes. So I thought we'd leave that be until we see if we need more. This expense we're going to go through to get this done is not a profitable venture for me.
Well, let's face it, though, the seawall is a seawall. Whoever owns that property has to get that repaired. So if it's you repairing it and investing in that repair, it's going to pay off if you sell it. So because it'll be an improvement to the lot. So it's something that just has to get done, regardless of who it is.
And that is why I agreed to do it, sure.
And regardless of what use it is. So I don't really look at that as it's something that you have to do because you bought the property. And like I said, if you sell it, it's going to be an improvement to the property.
Yeah.
So it would adjust accordingly with that. So tell me, what to you is the difference between considering first day of operation and within 120 days after date of this ordinance?
Okay.
What is that 4 months? What is that buying you?
It's buying us what's happening today. It's buying us not to have to call the Don and to say that they've been using the lot almost every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My contractors park there only during the day on the north end of the lot. Beth lets them park there. Zamora has employee parking on the south end.
But isn't that all in violation of the current CUP?
It is, that's why I'm asking,
So-
that's why I'm asking you for approval to allow that to happen.
So you
for the
want to
100.
allow
I want to allow
violations
the
to
current-
happen
No,
for
it won't be a
120
violation
days?
of my CUP if you approve it.
Right, not of yours, but of
yeah.
the current CUP.
Well,
Right.
the current CUP, I believe, is going to be terminated if mine's approved. So I don't want to be, in violation. I'm in violation nowhere and don't want to be tomorrow. So if you're not willing to approve that 120 days, then I need to walk away from the lease
If we sign this
option.
tonight and that negates the prior CUP, and we would sign something tonight, it could still take you 4 months, because this just says prior to the first day of operation. So if it took you 4 months, or if it, took you longer, it's just prior to the first day of operation.
No, I guess what I'm saying with the 4 months is, within the 4 months, we can do everything the city is asking us to do. Put in gates, put up the landscaping, do everything the city wants us to do within that 4-month period of time, so we can operate under the terms and conditions that the city is asking us to. But it's going to take us, because I have done none of that work. I have not ordered gates, because I don't have the right to do that. I don't lease or own the property today, not until the minute, if you approved us tonight, then my lease goes into effect. So because that work isn't done, I can't take the approval without the 4 months, because then I'm going to wake up in the morning and I don't have any parking for Miramar. We don't have any parking for Dawn, and I won't go park there if I don't have approval to do it. I just don't. You'll find that none of my properties have a code.
I think she's asking you, are you going to operate during those 4 months, or are you going to wait?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question I think she's asking.
Are you operating within that 120 days on that piece
We
of
are
property?
absolutely operating under the
You are.
current conditions that exist there now, except I will put new locks on those chains. And
No, if we sign this tonight, and it gets rid of the other CUP, we'll be operating under this one, and we're saying 120 days. I'm asking you, in that 120 days, are you going to be operating that lot?
yes, I'm asking to operate that lot exactly.
Okay, that's the question.
Exactly the way it's operated
Now.
for the last years. Yes,
Okay,
except.
which was in violation. Okay, so now it's.
Now it's
We
not,
got the same
but now
issue.
it's not in violation because you're allowing me.
Yeah, because we're allowing it,
you're
but we're
allowing
not
me to
really.
operate.
We're doing it by default because we didn't, I mean, it's in violation now.
But
And-
it won't be in violation if you approve, if you give me that 4 months.
Okay, so.
And we can
For
immediately.
4 months, no gate, no fence, no the things you've listed, but you'll be operating.
All of that will be ordered to be completed within 4 months, yes. And we will change the padlocks on the chains to make sure that we can control it, to keep the people out of there that have been bothering the neighbors by doing beach parking there. So I can do some things with it that are within my power to try to control it, because I'll have possession of it, but
Access control short of
access to my
electronic gate that will take
access to
time
my
to put in place,
contractors,
but
yeah,
You will
exactly.
control the entry into and out of that place, and you will be responsible for the entry in and out of that place, right?
I'll be responsible, yes,
Understood.
yes.
We do need to take public testimony as well.
I had more questions.
Oh,
I would ask that we extend the meeting to hear
Yep.
comments
are we?
and continue the meeting.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to extend till 10:30.
I second.
City Clerk, please.
Just a moment.
Sorry.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Commissioner Marion?
No.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Causey?
Yes.
Mayor Tate?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's continue. Ms. Robinson,
Okay,
you have questions?
kind of a incidental question, but back to trees. Why did you choose crepe myrtles? And are those in the front on Gulf Boulevard side?
I had to name something, and
Okay.
I looked at what the city allowed, and they seem to be the most acceptable.
I'm just-
We had to make a decision, like, I had like the next day to get the application in because the deadline was coming up. And when I spoke to the staff, it was like, well, here's the ones we accept. And I'm not really a landscape expert, but we would bring in somebody to help us, get all that straight. But I just picked it from what was available and acceptable.
Because it's more of an inland Winter Haven thing.
Yeah, I know.
And the items, and the ones that we did have here, didn't make it.
Well,
Ori and Blinds Pass, so those didn't make it.
What I could tell you about landscaping and trees would take about 20 seconds. So I just had to pick something because if you'll notice the first application, if you go back, I actually had to handwrite it that night because I couldn't even get it typed up in time to get it in. So if you see the first application, it's all my scribbled handwriting through the night on that 8 pages to get in time. So, I'm sorry, but I just didn't have time to really.
No, just
All right, but we'll.
a question, because they just didn't make it well here in this town as it was, and it's ironic that you would put them in there, that's all.
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
It's just ironic that they would go back in when they didn't make it.
Believe me,
They look like just sticks up and down the road.
Believe me, I'm not objecting to suggestions on the landscaping. I don't think Mr. Bowden is either.
Okay, I really probably don't have another question on that. Would be it.
City Clerk, their audience comments for us?
Yes, Jack Martineau?
If you could state your name and your address.
Yes, sir. Jack Martino, 3848 Gulf Boulevard, Palmcrest Resort Motel. The Miramar development is a beautiful project that fits the character of St. Pete Beach. My concern is not the project itself, but making sure the conditional use permit includes the protections needed for neighboring businesses and residents. Over the past years, the existing conditional use permits have created ongoing problems for my business and the surrounding neighborhood. We have had to deal with illegal beach parking, illegal sales of beach parking, public urination, public intoxication, trash, late night tailgate parties, construction equipment and material storage, neglecting landscaping and broken fencing. We do not want to see these same issues continue. If this permit is approved, I respectfully ask that it includes the following conditions: valet parking only, no special events self-parking, security gates must remain closed, operation at all times. If a gate breaks, the lot should be staffed or closed until it is repaired. The operator must take reasonable steps to prevent illegal beach parking and related activities from disrupting neighboring properties. The parking lot must be kept clean, free of trash, with landscaping, fencing, and property properly maintained. The city must enforce these conditions and hold the operator accountable if they are not followed. With these protections in place, I believe the conditional use permit can work while protecting neighboring properties, owners, and preserving the character of our community. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Amanda Davis?
Hi, Amanda Davis, 3820 Gulf Boulevard, so right across the street from the exit for what Zamora is using right now. I talked to Mr. Bowden outside. This all sounds great. Where I'm coming from, though, is we've been doing special use permission on this lot since 2011. I've lived here since 2009. Every couple years, I get a letter just like this. It has a nice little diagram, tells me how we're getting a fence, tells us how we're getting landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. None of it has come to fruition. Additionally, we've had all these violations. I know we've let everybody know about it as they come up. Some of you are newer, but I know you probably still have videos sent of all the trespassing and everything that comes from Zamora parking primarily. Basically, I'm a little nervous, so I'll read my notes here. We've heard the same empty promises from the city at every time this comes up for renewal. That they will work towards developing something that fits within the variance, without a variance. With proper zoning, valet only, secure lot, they'll monitor the premises, build appropriate fencing, et cetera, and it has never come true. This is where we're coming from with 15 years of this lot operating like this. So if you want to approve this tonight, we can't just have a vision of no self-parking. It needs to be in this, and there needs to be conditions and penalties and a way forward for residents to seek recourse when this happens. Expanding this 15-year situation creates traffic hazard. Can you imagine if 220 cars with 800 people are allowed to self-park in a special event? That's almost as big as the Pinellas County parking. So that's a huge amount of people in an area with no restrooms, with no traffic lights, with no beach access. And none of this can really be managed. It's a huge drain on city resources, and we really need to look at, if this does pass, that there are extreme conditions and that they are enforced. I understand that there would have to be a transition period, that they will have to take some time to get this into effect. I do not think this is more employee parking should be allowed to continue, because it is not employee parking. It is beach parking. That is what they've been using it for years now. I made some notes as we went on. It was mostly about that transition period, and I really just urge you to think of our community, to think of the 102 homes across the street, that we can't continue in this manner for another 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicki Pullen.
Good evening, everyone. It's a long, late night, so I'll shorten mine down a little bit. First off, I want to say, Commissioners and Mayor, that I'm really glad to hear some of the commentary, because I can tell that it's coming directly from the letters that our community sent in. So I'm happy to go back to the community and report that's what I heard tonight, so thank you for that. Some of this might be a little bit redundant, but as you well know, a primary responsibility of the City Commission is to ensure the safety of residents and visitors. This particular CUP, as it stands now, allows for over 200 vehicles to be parked for the special events, and many of you have said that's a bone of contingency. That has to be very, very clearly defined. I picture an event and more cars coming across the street, and how is this going to be controlled when just on the 4th of July we sat on our balcony and watched it take 45 minutes for people just to drive down Gulf Boulevard to get home? This doesn't specify any frequency of the events. There's no parameters around what a special event is. If a special event is the Don asking to valet, well, that's one thing. I don't consider that a special event, but maybe my language is wrong. Maybe that's a contingency of what the leasee wants to do. But those things, to Amanda's point, have to be very, very clear. You know, pedestrians, we all see it. They cross Gulf Boulevard directly to the beach rather than using the crosswalks, and the crosswalk is 10 steps away. Of course, that puts them in danger. And of course, there's also an additional security risk for us homeowners, because people cross the street that way, they come in where there's no beach access, they climb on our fence, they climb over our pool heaters to get a pong table over and have their day at the beach. And that's what we've been dealing with. Speaking of safety, according to city data reported by Bay News 9 in March of this year, there have been 5 fatal accidents and 18 accidents involving serious bodily injury since 2017, with most of those occurring on Gulf Boulevard. Adding a large parking lot with sole access to Gulf Boulevard disregards safety concerns. Furthermore, this property has a 15-year history of misuse, including numerous CUP violations and extensions, as Amanda said. So I just implore all of you that we've got to have a lot of detail around what's going to happen. And to Amanda's point, then we have to know that we're going to have the support as homeowners, that if there is an issue, we can rely on you all to support us, and that there is enforcement of what is written in the CUP. That's pretty much it. I thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much.
Deborah Scheckner.
Deborah Scheckner, Boca Ciega Isle, St. Pete Beach. Is this still considered Bayou residential? Okay, so we're taking a residential area and we're spot zoning it, no matter how you look at it, to allow a parking lot. That's illegal. Valet's crossing Gulf Boulevard, lady just told you how dangerous it is. How many more people have to die? What about that valets? Does anybody care about their lives? Probably not. You're opening a Pandora's box, if you allow this, for every other lot that's empty in the city to turn it into a parking lot. If the hotel did not have enough parking to sustain their restaurant and bar, they shouldn't have been approved. And they stated that they had that parking available. We also have the freebie, we have buses, we have Uber, people can get there. Why would the Don Cesar want to park there? So if the hotel doesn't have enough parking, then the days that the Don Cesar are filling the lot, they won't have enough parking. Noise, lights, dust. It is not applicable that those things will be taken care of. And let's see, in a home, anything along the water, the fence can be 4 foot high, no more than 4 feet high. It really goes back to the fact that it was testified here that this particular hotel had enough parking. And now they're coming to you and telling you they don't. And they're worried about residents being able to use their facilities. Doesn't ring true to me. It really worries me that you would give a CUP to an entity that testified one way, and now all of a sudden they don't have enough parking. It's not your job to make sure they are successful, and that the Dawn's going to park there, Zamora's going to park there. How many other parking spaces that hotels need? If the hotel has enough parking, then why do we need special event parking? Special event parking doesn't usually work very well. And again, I really go back to those valets. Crossing Gulf Boulevard is dangerous. People, pedestrians as well, don't take care often. And then you're putting these young men and women in danger. This is really being bamboozled.
Thank you.
I have no further audience comments.
Mayor, if I might just qualify, for the record, section 42.4 Land Development Code for Bayou Residential Zoning District states the allowable conditional uses. And E is off-premises parking lot. So it's allowed if you have a conditional use in the Bayou Residential, if you meet the criteria.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. Okay. We've peppered all the questions, and so I think it's, we've heard feedback. Yeah, I don't know if we have a, I will say this. I know we've kind of, through our discussion this evening, kind of talked about temporary fencing, right? This temporary light barrier. We've talked about, I think there's some desire for valet only. I think we certainly heard that, from our residents, and I think that's something of import. And so I think for me, as is, I think we still have to kind of solve some of these things. And I don't know what the most, I guess, expedient way to get this done, whether that's this evening, approved with these kind of adjustments, or whether that's, whatever the right phrase is. So, I know I've heard at least the mitigation with the temporary fencing and ideally valet only, although I don't know how broadly that's held across the commission. But I don't know what you recommend, City Attorney, on path next forward, or how we go about this, unless Commissioner Muller, you still.
So you can always continue if you want more information, or if you want more time. You have all these conditions from the applicant. You have the concerns you raised. Brandon may need some time to write these up. Maybe we could get some direction from the commission this evening before 10:30, then take it back through staff, and then bring it back to you the next meeting. We continue to a date certain. Unless you're going to vote to deny, then that's a simple vote. That can happen quickly.
Can we just check in with the applicant on timing, just so I understand from Mr. Bowden? Our next meeting is July 28th, if we were to continue to a date certain.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could work through the issues that have been put forward and approve something tonight that we could live with, but if you would rather continue it until the next meeting, that's fine. I would like the termination of the current CUP extended to that same date, so it doesn't drastically change everyone's life tomorrow.
So yeah, so if we're going to continue, we would recommend you continue all three to
Yeah,
a
right,
date
they're
certain, which would be
all
July 28th.
But we certainly are willing to take the comments that were given tonight, work through it with Brandon, and come on back to another meeting if that works best for you.
I think that would not only ourselves, but I think give the community some comfort that some of these things, the mitigating pieces that we're talking about, are going to be in place as written, as we approve it. So I think that would, I haven't yet heard from Commissioner Maldonado, but I think that sounds like the right approach for me. Commissioner Maldonado, sir.
Yeah, I do agree that that would be the best alternative to making a irrational decision tonight. I do think, though, after hearing comments from the public, as well as the commission and the applicants, so that the understanding of special events is really just a valet parking. It almost made it sound like it was bifurcated into what you would envision at some future time to maybe involve something beyond what it is that you're presenting to the commission. But for the definition of today's discussions, I want to make sure that we all understand that even if it's another hotelier, that they're also using valet parking 100% of the time.
I think you're right. I think the term special event was used for a self-parking event that the Don Cesar was going to have there. But I think I'm certainly agreeable to back off that and to take the special event away. And a lot will.
If they term it a special event, the persons moving the vehicles, entering and exiting the lot would be valet staff only.
At all times.
That's right. So there doesn't, that means there isn't a special event, there isn't a special event at all. It's just 100% valet parking all the time.
They can term it whatever they want, but you as the
operator,
applicant, as the operator, as the potential owner, your assurances to us and to the public are that it would be valet only.
I think I'm agreeable to that after talking to the public tonight.
Just withdraw special event.
I'm agreeable. I mean, what am I going to say? They're pretty tough, right? They were kind. They have a problem to solve, and we're happy to help them solve that problem.
We talked through most of the concerns that we've received, emails and correspondence and discussions. And I understand the frustration of having heard promises for 15 years.
I get it. I wasn't making those promises for 15 years.
No, you weren't. So you're starting from a clean slate. So
I'd like to be starting at step number one. Yeah, thank you.
All right. I know I see some green lights to my right, so I'm not sure who was first. I apologize. Mr. Robinson, please.
No, I believe you were first. Sure.
Yeah, thank you, and I know this has been a long night, and I thank everybody for hanging in there and all the hard work you guys have done to put together a plan that is very thoughtful. I think that it's very clear that if we just keep this as valet only, that solves 90% of our problems. I think I could be comfortable with the text of the conditions as provided by the applicant. I'm also very comfortable in giving staff and the applicant some time to make sure that everybody's agreeing on the same thing and that there's no misunderstanding about what we're agreeing to. I think it's completely reasonable for them to get a 4-month transition time to continue operating the lot as it is right now, as it gets improved every day, because I'm sure it will get, it's not like we can wave a magic wand and make it what we want it to be tomorrow, because construction of things takes time. And I'm sure that they also are not going to wait 120 days and then wave that same magic wand and make it happen overnight after 120 days. So I think that gives time for continual progress. You know, there's construction happening all over the city in every single neighborhood after the storm. And I certainly think it's appropriate for us to extend some grace to him wanting to have a place for his, you know, contractors and workers to park while his hotel gets finished. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. And so I'm 100% for this. I think it's going to be a significant improvement over what's been happening. You know, so far in our dealings with this applicant, he's done everything he said he's going to do, and you know, has been a great person to work with. And so, I mean, I think this is really this shouldn't be hard.
Thank you, Commissioner Causey.
I think my only addition to this would be to ask regarding commercial vehicles or the construction equipment that is being parked there during the daytime. Could we limit that to the 120 days? Because I know you'll have another project starting up, and I'm wondering if we'll end up with construction vehicles being in that lot in the 6 months from now.
Oh, you're talking about Beach Haven. Yeah, no, that's too far away. The 120 days is, the hotel will be about complete. It's July, August, September, October, November. Yeah, the hotel will be about.
Okay, so I would like to make that one of the conditions.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Commissioner Causey, I would just caution us to not do something that means that if a guy who's a plumber in his plumber truck comes to his restaurant next January and has his plumbing truck valet parked in the parking lot, that's all of a sudden going to be a violation of the CUP. Because there's a lot of tradespeople who patronize businesses and don't necessarily have another car. So, I mean, maybe we limit. I mean, if that's his only option, you bet he'll valet. I valeted my car when I told the valet he had to push start it. So, you know, I think we. I mean, you know, maybe we want to limit, you know, 5 axle tractors or something, but you know, just a blanket prohibition on who knows what somebody might define as a construction vehicle, I think is very problematic.
Well, that's a good point, I think.
Very against that.
It is a good point, but I think what I'm just trying to address is the 5 to 10 construction vehicles that are parked there every day. And then I didn't want that to.
Construction, using it as a construction staging area.
Yes, and that I don't want to be happening for the next year, for example.
If I can add a point, staff already has a condition in there that says when we're operating the facilities, we can have construction equipment there subject to approval by the building department of a construction management plan. So once we got through this transitionary period, which we can define out as part of these conditions, then once we're through that 120 days, then that other provision would take effect, which is it's going to be valet parking of non-commercial vehicles except in connection with an approved plan from the building department. And as Kevin said, we don't anticipate there being any more construction equipment there, but that kind of maybe addresses the issue of someone who has a construction vehicle that they drive as their everyday vehicle.
But it will need to come through the building department beyond
Correct.
the first 120 days. So then it's a city kind of blessed, situation in that.
Correct.
There. That helps. Okay. I'm cognizant that we got just a few more minutes.
Need
either
a
that we've got
motion.
That would be to July 28th.
Yeah, I've got a motion. Let's see here. So the motion is to continue to 28 July,
6 p.m.
6 p.m., conditional use permit 26107 through resolution 2026-22.
as well as 2026-14 and 2026-16.
As well as 2026-16
Get 2-2.
and
14.
Wait.
14.
14, 16.
Yeah, 14 and 16. 2026-14 and 2026-16.
Second.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Causey?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Mayor Tate?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That's the last of our action items, I believe, right? We just pushed all those out to the 28th. Or whatever was just said. I don't want to, don't quote me on that. All right, next. Items for discussion, I think, is next. And I think I don't know that we're going to get through all three, frankly, so, I don't know if somebody's got a pressing urgency on either short-term rental regulation fees, city commercial agenda timelines, or city commission agenda timelines, and beach maintenance. Does somebody have a...
I'd like to withdraw mine, sir.
Okay. Which was?
Beach maintenance.
Got you. We can pick it up another session. Anybody else want to withdraw? Or
Nope.
hammer out two pretty quickly?
Mildly quick,
Okay.
promise. Because y'all have already gotten it.
All right.
Short-term rental?
Short-term rentals, okay. And I apologize to whoever asked for the agenda timeline. We'll defer that if we have to.
Okay.
We will not go past 10:30 unless we all vote to do it again.
So
We're not over that.
I wanted to present the memorandum that the legal opinion for vacation rental registration regulations and cost recovery while preserving the city's pre-2011 grandfathered vacation rental regulations. This was sent to all of us from Becky Vose in regards to that and what we could do. This is an area that we can offset costs, and by offsetting those costs and doing that, we can add to our general fund. And so it is a roundabout way of actually getting some more revenue in, and it would be starting with the special magistrate, everybody who has illegally done so, and as well talking to Becky, the ways to go ahead and go about getting the database for it is actually quite easy. They are currently working with a couple cities doing such, and potentially we're looking at, this could be $1 million a year, depending upon how much we charge. And I've been told, we just have to have justification for the charge. It would be all the costs associated with code enforcement, administration, all that, because the reality is all of us who don't have vacation rentals or don't have properties that we're short-terming, renting, we're paying for the code enforcement and the administration and everything else to handle that. And that needs to really be picked up and be carried by the folks that are doing that. And to do so, they need to cover the cost of that. So, I don't know if you've read this or not.
I have read that. I interpret it quite a bit differently than you did, I think. And maybe I need to do a little more investigation on this, but I think that, one, we can only charge a registration fee for short-term rentals that are allowed short-term rentals, right? We cannot,
you have to register for it, right? And
right. So there's a limited number of properties in the city that can do short-term rentals. So those are the only ones who are going to register.
RM district.
Those are the only ones who are going to
Hasbro
register.
overlay.
We can only charge fees that actually cover the costs of managing the program. So if we're going to charge $1 million, we're going to spend $1 million managing the program, and so that seems completely like all we're doing is making work, and that seems ridiculous.
I discussed this at length with Becky, and there are programs that you can put into use to find out who is doing the short-term rentals. Because right now, we have nobody applying for any sort of business permit or anything that we even know that they're doing it. This allows for the registration of them. We can cover all the administration costs. We can cover the code compliance, the code enforcement officers. We can cover all that. And that allows, or can allow, a significant amount of money to go into that department, and the funds that we normally would use there can go back into general funds. So it's kind of a roundabout wash on that.
So defraying the cost of the enforcement, hypothetically, would be one mechanism of, look, we're doing the enforcement now, and you're just saying we could pull that out of this administrative fee kind of fund rather than out of the general fund theoretically.
Right.
Reinforcement. I'm just making sure I understand.
Yep.
Are you, I want to make sure that we're not trying to sanction new, short-term rentals or change the timeframes. Is that all kind of in your thinking?
No,
or are you
no,
just
no,
saying
no, 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 we can't really change the timeframes, and even Ralph had said that before, and that is reaffirmed in here, because we're under the pre-2011 prohibition on that. We cannot change that. What we put into effect has to stay in effect, basically. So I'm not asking to change the 30-day to a 14-day or anything else. I'm just saying a registration fee to offset the costs that we're incurring now and all residents are incurring on behalf of short-term rentals in the city. It's potentially another way to, look, we're sitting here talking about how to generate some revenue, right? And this is one way that potentially can generate revenue, and it's not that hard to do.
We just got to be careful in using the term generate revenue. It's not intended to generate revenue.
No, okay, cover
Costs
expenses.
associated with managing the program.
Yes.
It's a very, very distinct point.
Right, and sorry, I didn't know you.
I just wanted to give you a little guidance if you're going to provide majority direction this evening, is that the first step would be we need to do a study that's defensible. So I would want to hire a consultant to come in and review the current resources to create a nexus to recovery. So if you're going to give me direction, that would be the first direction you would provide to me, is please build into the budget consultant fees for studying. I don't know how much this study would cost. I'm thinking 10,000 just off the top of my head, because it is one very finite fee. And then you would need to create that study to defend an ordinance, and then we would create a new fee.
Can I just, knowing that we could literally have a minute, either we got to extend or end, can I suggest that if this is important enough that we pick it up as a discussion item next time? I don't want to put an action item on there. I would like to, I don't mind having the conversation and understanding it, but I don't want to invest in any studies just yet. I just want to kind of talk about it, but we're about to be out of time.
So continue as a discussion item to the 20th.
And I think this is easier than doing a study. We've got history here with 2 other cities with our current law firm on this that are already working with folks that are doing it. My other item of discussion, it was just asking what everybody thought, is if we could get our agendas on Tuesdays instead of on Thursdays to allow more time to evaluate and actually be able to go through the agenda, and also being able to go through public responses.
Yeah.
So if that's the majority desire, I probably need about 6 cycles.
That's fine.
To change that because of the deadlines that are built in internally.
I don't need that lead time, so.
Necessary, I think Thursday's fine.
Yeah. Plus, it gives us time to get the last couple things, but I think we're out of time, so.
Yep. I would say no decision on that. Again, we can carry it up next time, bring it right back for more discussion. But being that it is 10:30, our meeting is now officially adjourned.